Hello guys, we're back again with another story, which is on What If Bella Became an FBI Agent? So don't forget to like and subscribe for more such videos. Let's get started. Los Angeles, California. What can be seen of the underground racing world? Fast cars, money, drugs, women, more. A lifestyle that can be so extreme, it can swallow you whole if you let it. Los Angeles was a hot pot for all these things and more, and if you weren't careful, you would disappear. Bella Swan, age 25, dark hair, dark eyes, a little pale. She could pass for younger if needed, but that's not what was needed right now. Brian O'Connor, age 28. Tall, blonde hair, blue eyes. Slight rugged appearance, but he was a pretty boy. The bureau paired her with him. This was her first undercover work, and she was excited it was about cars. All right. Pay attention, Tanner spoke up. Tanner was older and the lead detective on the case liaisoned with the bureau about the hijacked trucks and stolen goods. Bella had her hair braided back, so it was pulled out of her face. She was wearing cargo pants that were khaki, and a t-shirt that said Nissan across the front, and it was a washed-out look and navy in color. She glanced over at the pretty boy she was being partnered with. He was dressed casual as well. There was another hijacking yesterday. More stolen goods, electronics. This is the 10th truck hit. We need answers, and we needed them yesterday, Tanner said and looked straight at Brian. O'Connor, you and Swan are going to go in undercover. The target is the underground racing scene. The evidence all points to street racers as the ones pulling off these hijackings. We're going to need cars. Not just any cars, impressive ones, Brian said, with a nod. Got it covered. Brian, we got you in at the Racer's Edge, a high-end auto body shop. Bella, you're going to work your way into the racing ring from the streets. You're from some racing circuits in New Mexico, and you moved to LA to get a look at the scene. Bella nodded. Got it. Cover names? You're Bella Sawyer, and Brian, we're gonna go with Spillner for you. We need results. Get them before the truckers start taking matters into their own hands. Bella knew that if the police didn't make any headway on the case, that the truckers would really try and take up arms to protect themselves and their loads. All right, Brian, head to Racer's Edge, Tanner said and then looked at Bella. Ready to see your car? Bella smirked. Hell yeah, she said and followed Tanner out, going out to a garage, the lights switching on. She looked at the car in front of her. It was an electric blue color, white and black spirals down the sides. A Porsche 918 Spider. The get-up on this car was impressive. 0-60 in less than 3 seconds, or at least that was the potential. She walked around it. This car is going to blow a lot of cars out of the water, she said and opened the driver's side door and popped the hood, and took a look at the engine. She whistled. Yeah, supped up. Tanner smiled. Well, I'll take your word for it, he said. Get out there, be seen, be known, he said and dismissed her. Bella got into the car, opening the center console, and spying her new IDs, credit cards, etc. She started the car, the rumble of the engine vibrating, and she smiled. The garage door opened, and she backed out, and took to the streets. Toretto's DT Precision Auto Shop. Bella found her new apartment fairly easy. She changed clothes, did some light makeup, unbraided her hair, letting it fall in waves down her back. She drove around some other places in LA, found out that Toretto's was the best mechanic shop. She created a problem with her car, knowing she could fix it, but it was an excuse. She pulled up at the auto shop, and the roar of her car drew attention. Her tinted windows obscured the view inside her car, and her visor was down, blocking the sun, and also blocking the view. She opened her door and got out, looking around. She was wearing sunglasses, hiding her eyes from the sun, but it also meant she could study people easier with them on. A small lanky guy came out of the garage. His hair was hidden with a beanie hat, but you could see the darker tufts of hair that spilled out the sides. His eyes were a darker blue, and he wore grease on his cheek. You could tell he was hot by the sweat that glistening over his bare shoulders and neck since he was wearing a white tank top and some Dickies jeans. He seemed to be nervous, and Bella took note. Are you a mechanic? Why yes, he spoke, stuttering a little. I was wondering if you had time to take a look at my car? He nodded. Sure. Bella smiled a little. Are you okay? Why yes. Keys? He asked. Bella walked towards him, Realizing that she was close in height with him, but is barely taller, she handed him the keys. This is also a diner. Sandwiches and B burgers. Good. I'm Bella, she introduced. Jessie. Bella smiled, peering over the top of her sunglasses. Hi Jessie, she said and then looked towards her car. It shakes a bit when I shift down, like it's not shifting smooth. Jessie nodded. I'll take a look, he said and walked to her car, sliding in and turning the car on. Bella smiled and then looked towards the small what appeared to just be a counter, and some bar stools. She walked in, looking around, and then was met with a pretty-faced girl, probably early 20s as well. Her hair was dark, but was pulled up in a ponytail, her bangs framing her face. Her dark eyes met Bella's and she smiled. Hi, you have sandwiches? Yes. And burgers. Jessie, taking a look at your car? Bella nodded. Yes. I figured I should eat while I wait. I'm Bella, by the way. Mia. She introduced. How do a Reuben on rye sound? Really good. Thank you. Bella said, smiling as she sat down. Mia disappeared to get that sandwich made. Some cars pulled up then, all decked on in bright colors and designs. There were 3 of them, and it pulled Bella's attention. There were 3 guys. The first guy was on the tall side, buff, a tattoo on his right arm that was half a sleeve, with a mix of tribal design. He had a beard that was dark, matching the dark hair he had on his head, and his eyes were intense, a dark navy color. His skin was lightly tanned from spending time out in the LA heat. His muscles were tight, toned, and you could tell he worked out. He was followed by another guy, younger, with bronzed skin, and dark raven hair, cut short. His eyes were dark, like pitch, and he was incredibly buffed too. The other guy was wirier. His mahogany hair took on a reddish tint in the sun. He was lean, thin like Jessie was, but his eyes were green, and dazzling so. His face was perfectly sculpted and was smooth like the bronze god that walked beside him. They walked up, the first guy's eyes latching on to Bella's. That your spider? He asked, his voice gruff, but he had a charming smile on. He sat on the bar stool next to her, clearly gearing up to hit on her. Bella raised a brow. It is, she said and then looked up at Mia when she returned with the sandwich. Thanks Mia, she said with a smile. Mia smiled back, setting the sandwich down in front of her and looked at the guy. Vince, don't scare the customers away please. The other bronze god guy snickered, but Vince didn't find it funny. Bella picked up her sandwich, taking a bite. Oh, this is amazing, she said, smiling at Mia. Vince smiled. Yeah, Mia makes the best Reubens. He was still smiling at Bella. Jessie returned. I'm going to have to take it for AT test drive. If you want to show me. Seriously Jess? Vince said and looked at Bella. He gets like this in front of girls he doesn't know. Bella smiled, and looked at Jessie. You can take her for a spin. I trust you, you're a mechanic. She said. Don't feel anxious around me. I promise I don't bite, she said, with a wink, and it made Jessie blush a little. Jessie nodded. Okay, he managed to say and then he left. Bella looked at Vince. He's your friend. You shouldn't tease him, she said and looked at Mia. Do you have any soda? We do. Dr. Pepper? Mia guessed. Bella nodded. That'll be great, thanks. I wasn't teasing him, he's just nervous around women is all, Vince said with a shrug. Bella looked at Vince, studying him a little. And you're not nervous around women? Vince grinned. No, I am not, he said, winking at her. Bella smiled. It was a little tight as she raised a brow. Okay. I know you think you're charming. Unfortunate for you, you're a little too overconfident. You should stick to women that you know are in your league as well. The bronze god busted out into a fit of laughter. Shut it, Jake. Vince said. Jake snorted. Striking out isn't fun, but damn, that was good. Vince glared and looked back at Bella. You're not from around here. I'm not. Bella said and smiled at Mia when she brought her a Dr. Pepper. New Mexico. She heard the rumble of her car start, and then glanced over her shoulder at Jessie. Drive it around, leaving the shop. Where'd you find a car like that? Vince probed, curious about her now. Built it. Bella said, lifting her Dr. Pepper to her lips. You built that spider? Vince said, his tone a little condescending. Bella shifted, turning to face him. You think that I can't build a car? You brought your car to a shop. Vince said. If I was in New Mexico still, I would have my own garage to take it to, now, wouldn't I? I heard there was some racing circuits up this way, so I decided to come on vacation, check it out, Bella said and finished her sandwich. You race? Jake asked. Bella glanced over at him. I do. I don't drive a fast car for the hell of it. Mia smiled. I like you. You're sassy, thanks, I like you too. Jesse returned, parking and getting out after popping the hood. Bella glanced back over at him. $20, it's a slipped timing belt, she said, looking at Vince. Vince nodded. All right, there's no way you built that. They watched Jesse go into the shop and back out again with a tool. After a few moments, he fixed whatever it was, and then got back in the car, and drove it around the block and then back again, parking, and getting out. He walked towards Bella and the others. Just a slipped timing belt, he said with a nod. Bella looked at Vince, who looked a little shocked. You can pay for my lunch, she said with a wink as she stood. She walked towards Jesse, pulling her own wallet out, and handed him a couple $100. Thank you, she said, and then kissed his cheek. Jesse blinked rapidly a few times and then stared at Bella. You really don't have to pay. It was just a timing belt. I know, Bella said, smiling. I'm a mechanic too. She winked, and then grabbed her keys from his hand. Hopefully I see you again before I leave LA, she said, and then she tossed her hair over her shoulder, waving at Mia, before sliding back into her car, starting it as it roared to life. She backed away, spinning her car around and taking off, her car hitting 60 under 3 seconds, leaving the others at the shop stunned. Jesse lifted a hand to his cheek, and looked towards the others. I think I'm in love, he murmured. Mia smiled. She was something else. Pay up, Vince. Vince sighed, taking money out of his wallet and handing it to Mia. She is something else, he muttered. Jake was grinning. A new racer on the board. Do you think she'll be at the race later tonight? Maybe, Mia said. She came here to race. What was her name? Jake asked. Bella. Jesse said. I won't forget her name ever, he sighed. Later that night, street racers took the chance of racing illegally in the streets. The spotter cars got in their places, with their scanners to make sure they were watching for the cops, to ensure that everyone could get away fast if need be. Music was vibing in the back of some cars, as people showed off their bass. Bella rolled up in her Spider, getting out and standing next to her car. She heard a whistle, and she glanced over, spying Vince and the crew from the auto body shop. She sighed inwardly. Vince was an ape, she had decided. Jesse was a sweet kid, and was like the little brother of the crew, she mused. There were more people in the crew than earlier. There was another guy, his muscles clear through his tight, black shirt. He had no hair, but his eyes were dark, like Mia's. He was tall, and built with more muscles than Vince. People knew him instantly, and after Bella's own research, she knew that was Dominic Toretto, or just Dom. Another car caught her attention, but only because it was Brian's car. He pulled up, coming to a stop diagonal from her. He was driving a lime green Acura NSX. The blue neon was a nice touch, and she knew that the specs under that hood was enough to challenge her car, but in the end, it would be skill. She didn't know too much about Brian's driving capabilities, but she knew hers. They were supposed to know each other from New Mexico as part of their cover. You fucking came, Bella said, a wide smile on her face, as Brian smiled back, approaching, and slapping her hand, and then a fist bump. Well, when you said you were headed to LA for some racing scenes, I was like, fuck it, why not? Bella shook her head. You're going to lose. Bet, Brian said with a nod. Bella glanced over at Vince and the others, walking up to inspect Brian's arrival. Vince looked over Brian's car, nodding his appreciation. Jesse was there, and he was a little nervous around Bella still. Hey Jesse, I'm glad you came tonight, Bella said, ignoring Vince and his wandering stares. Why yeah, I don't like to miss the races. Bella smiled and then her eyes landed on Dom's. He was studying her, taking her in. Jesse says you have a nice ride, Dom said, and looked towards her car. It is nice, he said with a nod. Thank you. Dominic Toretto, he introduced. Bella Sawyer. She supplied. All right. We're in the clear. Let's get this started, someone on a megaphone sounded. Bella smirked and looked at Brian. When you're kissing my taillights, I don't want to hear any whining. You two know each other? Dom asked. Yeah, this is Brian. Met him down in New Mexico, she introduced. Brian smirked. This is just practice for race wars. Put your money where your mouth is, Sawyer, he said. All right. Vince, you feel like some friendly competition with the new guys? Vince smiled. Hell yes. Bella raised a brow. We're doing this a four-way. We are. Dom said with a nod. When it was their turn, they got in their cars and got to the neon orange spray-painted line, and waited for the signal. Bella looked out her window and winked at Brian, who just smiled and shook his head. When they were given the go-ahead, they took off. Bella's car easily overtook the others. She knew what Dom and Vince were working with. Their cars were older, but she was sure they had NOS ready to use towards the end. 060 came in handy, giving her a larger leap. She shifted, and then came up on the corner. She drifted the corner, a technique she practiced a lot in her downtime. She saw Dom edging up on her left, and she watched as he hit his turbo with just a little bit left to go before the finish. She lifted a flap in console, hitting her turbo, and she shot forward, overtaking Dom again, and crossing the finish line, where she spun her car around, facing the others as they crossed. She got out of her car, smiling. It was shocking to see someone actually beat Dominic Toretto. People cheered. Brian got out, shaking his head. Your drifting got better. I practice more than you, Bella said with a smirk. She looked at Dom as he walked over, the others behind him. He was still studying her. Okay, that spider has more get up and go than I anticipated, Dom admitted. Jessie was just in awe of Bella. You're incredible. Bella smiled. Thanks, Jess, she winked. Scatter. The megaphone sounded, alerting them that the police caught wind. Bella rushed back to her car. Jessie, she called out to him when he stalled. Get in, she said, and he got in the passenger seat, and she spun her car around. She raced away, checking her rearview mirror. When they were in the clear, she looked over at Jessie. You good? Yeah, just makes me nervous. Cops, you know, Jessie said, blowing out a breath. Where to? Bella asked. Meeting up at Dom's. Usually where the party starts after a race, Jessie said, and then punched in the address on Bella's GPS in the car. Dom's house. They pulled up outside Dom's house. It was 2 stories, and was white. The porch was covered and there was a little fence that separated the neighboring property. There were other cars scattered around. Jessie and Bella got out, closing the door, and walking up to the front door. Jessie opened it, and music filtered outside on the porch. They walked inside. Vince was there, as was Jake, and then the other guy, Bella found out was Edward. He was quiet, and disturbingly so. There was some other people Bella recognized from the race, but she didn't see Dom, or Brian. Vince looked up at Bella and Jessie when they walked in. Oh, you did make it out, he said, looking at Jessie. Yeah. You scattered, leaving me there. You were my ride man, Jessie said. Bella smiled, and then slung her arm around Jess's shoulders. Don't worry, Vince, I took care of him, she said, and Jake laughed again. Bella, beer? Jake asked. Sure, Bella said with a nod and watched Jake disappear towards what she assumed was the kitchen. You're a good racer. You beat Dom, Vince said. Bella nodded. Yeah. It's 90% the car. Jake returned with an unopened beer, handing it to her. Your skill is really good. Drifting isn't something you see around here. Bella took the beer. Like I said, mostly the car, she said, opening the beer and taking a drink. Before long, Bella was laughing, talking with Jake and Jessie. They had some incredible stories. She noticed as Jessie acclimated to her presence, the less he stuttered around her. Finally, the front door opened, and Dom walked through, Brian right behind him. Vince looked up. Oh dude, I was just thinking about coming and looking for you. Dom shook his head. No, you weren't. Bella frowned when she saw Brian, and he was cut up a bit, as was Dom. What happened to you guys? Dom shook his head. Drove on the wrong turf. Brian here, saved me from the police, but Tran and his goons blew up his car, he said and walked towards the kitchen. Bella looked at Brian. Your car? Yeah. Long story. Brian said and sighed. I'll just have to build a new one before Race Wars. Bella would get more information out of him later. Tran? Is that a guy? Jake nodded. Yeah, leader of a gang, over towards Chinatown. He wasn't at the race tonight, but he'll likely be at other ones. After some bad business, Tran and Dom are enemies. Doesn't surprise me he blew up a car. Dom returned from the kitchen, handing Brian a beer, and looked at Bella. Thanks for getting Jesse out of there. Bella nodded. No man left behind, he said, lifting her own beer and taking a drink. After a couple drinks and some laughs, Bella looked at her phone. With that, boys, I must take my leave. I have some job hunting to do. If I want to stay in LA for a bit. Brian nodded. I talked to that guy down at the Racer's Edge, got a job there while I'm here in town. Bella nodded. Yeah, I'm not cut out for sales, she said with a smirk. I was thinking like coffeehouse or something. A mindless task, so I can focus on other stuff. Jesse frowned. Ah, you have to leave, he was bummed. Bella smiled. Yeah, but I'll see you around, don't be a stranger. Can I get your number? Jesse asked. Dom smiled, slapping Jesse on the back, winking at him. Bella smiled, and then reached her hand out, palm up, phone. Jesse fished his phone out of his pocket and handed it to her. She took it, typing in her number, the number of the phone issued to her while undercover. She saved the contact and handed it back to him. Cool. Thanks. Maybe I could call to eat lunch sometime together in the same room. Bella chuckled a little. Sure. How come Jesse gets your number? Vince asked. Aren't you out of our league or something? No, Vince, I'm out of your league, Bella said, looking at him. Jesse here is in a league of his own, a league you couldn't even fathom. She said and looked at Jesse and winked. See you later, she said, and then she left. Brian smiled, shaking his head. He lifted his beer, finishing it. Dom looked at him. How well do you know her, Bella? Let's see. She's a strong racer. Never loses. At least, I've never beaten her. Brian said, and looked to Jesse. She's caring. She doesn't like bullies, he said, glancing over to Vince. Jesse shook his head. He's harmless. Still, she likes to stick up for people. I've seen her fight too. Brian said and glanced at his watch. I should bounce too. I have work early. Dom nodded. Thank for having my back. We don't know each other, so I take what you did seriously. I'm sorry about your car. Not a big deal. Honestly, I was thinking about upgrading anyways. Bella returned, smiling. I just realized you don't have a car. Brian blinked at her. You appear out of nowhere. Why do you keep doing that? He said, smiling. Come on. I'll drive you to your hotel, Bella said and looked at Dom. Nice meeting you, Dom, she said, and then she disappeared out the door with Brian. Jesse sighed. She's wonderful, isn't she? Dom looked at Jesse and smiled. Yeah, she's something. Listen, Jess, you do know that she's looking at you from a platonic point of view. Jesse swallowed. I know. She is out of my league. I'm not dumb, Dom. She's friendly to me, and I'll take it. Dom nodded. Just don't want to see you get hung up on her, he said. She's in town for Race Wars in a few months, but she'll move out of here and go back home. So, don't get attached. Bella's apartment. Bella pulled up, and her and Brian got out and went up to the apartment. They were quiet until they got up there. So, what the fuck happened with your car? Brian sighed. Dom was trying to walk down the sidewalk. Los Finest spotted him, and he ran. I picked up him, and drove away, accidentally crossing over into Johnny Tran's territory. They realized I was hauling Dom. They forced me to follow to a Chinese restaurant. Dom and Tran had some words, and then they shot up my car, the NOS ignited, exploding. We caught a cab, and went to Dom's place. He relayed the events of the night. Bella shook her head. This Johnny Tran, they're street racers too. From the looks of it, they were riding motorcycles, but the way Tran talked, he was looking forward to the race wars in the desert to take on Dom and his crew, Brian said. Think that they could be in on the hijackings? Brian shrugged. I don't know. Give it time. Bella nodded. Tanner said in the file that Toretto was a target. I don't see him being the type. He's too controlled for that. Brian nodded his agreement. Yeah, I don't think so either. What's up with the Jesse kid? He's sweet. A little spastic, but he's a genius it seems. From the interactions I've had with him, he seems to be the better mechanic at Toretto's. Vince is overconfident. He may fit the mo for the hijackings, but honestly, he's a meathead. I don't really like him. Me neither. Well, we have some time to kill, Brian said. Bella nodded. We report early in the morning, and then you're going to Racer's Edge. Race Wars isn't for another 3 months. We must gather as much intel as we can. Blend with the people here, open some doors, be stealthy. How mad is Tanner going to be about the car? Oh, he's going to be pissed. Bella said and went to the fridge and pulled out a bottle of water. She took a long drink. All right, take your clothes off, she said, and set her bottle of water down to pull her shirt off. Brian looked at her. What? I saw how you were looking at Dom's sister, Mia, earlier tonight. Don't. Stay focused on the task at hand. You're horny, I get it. So, let's go, Bella said, unfastening her pants. Brian watched her, pulling his own shirt off. You are full of surprises. Well, I want you to not get attached or involved with the people of interest on the case, she said, and walked towards him in just her bra and panties. Don't make this a habit, but don't fuck Toretto's sister either. Brian reached out, his hand connecting with her bare skin and her hip, and pulled her closer, his mouth going over hers, kissing her, their tongues moving across each other, until they were naked and on the couch in the living room. He rolled a condom on from his wallet, and then drove into her fast and hard, jolting her with every thrust. It was meant to be quick, nothing passionate, and that's what it was. Just sex. Nothing more, a way to release some tension. When they finished, Brian lay on his back on the couch, and Bella on top of him. She could hear his heart pounding in his chest from the activity. She stayed like that a moment before getting up. You can sleep on the couch. We'll go see Tanner in the morning, and then I'll drop you off at work, she said, and then she left, going to the bedroom. Brian blew out a breath, running his hand through his hair. Bella was a different breed of woman. She was FBI, something he aspired to be. She had an air of mystery around her, and that made him curious. 3 weeks later, Bella was on her back, on a flat dolly, under the engine of a Nissan Skyline. She was wearing dark cargo pants, and a white tank top, and she had engine grease on her. She was at DT Auto Shop, and she was listening to some blue suede, hooked on a feeling, while she assisted Jesse on the Skyline. Hey Jess, did you see about Supra? The voice of Edward Cullen sounded in the shop as he walked in. His eyes went to Bella's legs, who was under the Skyline. Jesse looked over. Yeah. Hooked up the NOS for your race, he said. Everything is good to go, man. Edward nodded. Thanks, he said, and he walked on inside. Jesse moved to his computer, set up on a station, and was typing in some things. He was reconfiguring the memory chip for the computer in the car. Bella cursed when she busted her knuckle, trying to untighten a bolt. She rolled from under the car, and Jesse moved to help her up. You, okay? Jesse asked, but saw the blood on her knuckle. Oh, come on, he said, taking her hand in his and leading her inside to a sink where she could wash her hand out. Dom appeared. Hey, he said, and saw the blood on Bella's hand, and then he heard the roar of a car engine. He sighed. Jess, go see who that is. I'll help her, he said, and Jesse nodded, and left Bella with Dom. Dom took Bella's hand in his. His hands were rough, from working on cars, and just living the rough life. Not too bad, he said, and then took a towel, and dried her hand, and then led her to an office, where he picked up a first aid kit and set it on the desk. Opening it, he bandaged her knuckle. WD-40. It'll help loosen the bolt. Bella smiled. Thanks, she said, and looked at him. He was studying her. What? Dom reached a hand up, brushing his thumb over her cheek. Grease, he murmured. He had seen a lot of her around the last few weeks. She fit in around here. She gave Vince a hard time, and she helped Jesse with his stutter. She was good with her hands, and knew a lot about cars. Of course, he saw more of Brian too. He was strange at first, and him and Vince bickered a lot, but he saw how his sister looked at Brian. Seeing her smile like that when he walked in, was worth keeping him around too. He didn't realize his hand was still on her face, until she called his name. I'm sorry, he murmured, dropping his hand, but set it on her waist, and he was pulling her to him. His mouth covered hers, and she let him kiss her. It was slow, his mouth tasting her finally, his tongue moving over hers. His hand slid down, cupping her ass, and lifting her, before sliding her on the desk. Her hands went to his pants, unfastening his belt, and then his button and zipper, while his hands peeled her pants and panties off her. Before she knew it, he was plowing into her tight cavity, and she was instantly feeling the vibrating pleasure. She gasped as his hard cock reached far inside her, hitting her release, and she came around him, shuddering, his mouth covering hers to keep her quiet. He swelled tight, his cock filling before he thrust upwards into her, shooting inside her, emptying himself. It was a new sensation, one that she liked, as she moaned against his mouth. They were both breathless somewhat when it finished. They silently collected themselves. Bella straightened his clothes, and blew out a breath. She thought about what just happened. This was the thing she warned Brian not to do, and she went and did it. She ran a hand through her hair. You seemed panicked, Dom said, leaning against the desk, looking at her. Well, I'm just not used to this sort of thing, Bella said with a nod. I'm on birth control, she said, pointing to her arm. Dom nodded. I know. I noticed the scar, he said. I'm clean. Me too, Bella said, and her eyes met his again. She looked at the door. Go finish with the skyline. Dom walked towards her and then pulled her against him again, his mouth finding hers again. You're interesting, Sawyer, he murmured. Thanks for helping Jesse. Bella closed her eyes. Fuck, she murmured and looked at the door. Please don't tell him this happened. I think he'll be crushed. I promise I'm not aiming to get in his pants, I just don't want to see him hurt and. Relax. Jesse knows. He's not as dumb as people think he is. You stand up to Vince for him. That's a nice thing, and he knows you're doing it to be his friend. That's all he knows it is, Dom said. Bella nodded. Right, she said, and then turned, only for Dom to hook his hands on her waist again. Dom. After race wars you're going back to New Mexico? I'm not sure yet, she said, lying. After race wars, there was no telling where they would be on the case. If they solved it, or how much longer Bella needed to stay undercover. She moved away from him, opening the door to the office, and walked out, going back out to the garage. Jesse looked up at her. Oh, how's the hand? Good. Bella smiled and lifted her hand up. She grabbed a can of WD-40 and then went back under the car, and sprayed the bolt and let it sit. She then was able to get the bolt off easier. She started on another bolt, and then she heard her name. What's up, Jess? There's a guy here to see you, Jesse said. Jasper Hale? Bella frowned and rolled out from under the car, and looked up. I don't fucking believe it, she muttered. The bureau sent Jasper to check up on her. He was normally Whitlock, but she assumed it was for undercover purposes. You are a hard lady to find. Jasper spoke, his Texan accent clear in his smooth voice. His hair was still the long shaggy blonde she remembered from Quantico, and his liquid amber eyes looked like honey. He reached a hand out and she grasped it, and he lifted her up. Why the fuck are you all the way out here in LA? Bella asked. Race wars. Jasper said with a nod. You didn't think you would be the only one interested, did you? Bella raised a brow. So, you found me. What do you want from me now? I want you to take a look at my engine. Jasper gestured to his car. It sat pretty, the earthy tones suited Jasper. It was an old Dodge Charger according to the body. Bella shook her head. Still driving muscle, she said, and walked over towards it. Jesse followed, curiously. Dom even came out of his office to take a look at what was going on. Pop it, Jazz, she said, and Jasper complied. Her and Jesse leaned over the engine, admiring it. What do you get? 0-60 in like 30 seconds, Bella teased. No, Jesse said, and then leaned in further. This has a turbo timer, he said, pointing it out. It was a little obscured, but Jesse caught it. Bella smirked. All right, cowboy, she crossed her arms. I'm impressed. Jasper smiled. Still not as impressive as your Spider, he said with a nod to her car. Oh no, muscle cars are sexy, but my car is built for speed. She winked. When you get a chance, Brian is in town for race wars. Are you hitting up the strip to do some legal racing? Yeah, Wanted to give it a few goes. Want to join me? Jasper said. Maybe later. I've got some stuff to finish up here. Next Wednesday. I'll even let you buy me dinner this time, she said with a smile. Jasper smiled wide. Deal. Only this time, let's make it to dinner, he said with a wink and then shut the hood. Where can I find Brian? Racer's Edge. High-end auto parts, Jesse supplied. Jasper nodded and then stepped forward to Bella, and hugged her, kissing her cheek at the same time, his smile never leaving his face, but he slipped something in her back pocket at the same time. He went back to his car. I'll see you Wednesday at the strip, he said, and then he started the car, the V8 engine roaring to life, before he backed away. Race wars just got interesting, Bella murmured, watching Jasper drive away. Old boyfriend? Jesse asked. Bella smiled at Jesse and then patted his cheek. No boyfriend. Just a special friend, she said, and then walked back towards the skyline. Dom smirked a little, seeing the confused look on Jess's face until it clicked, and he blushed, thinking about the type of friend Bella implied. People catching wind you're racing in race wars. Yeah. I'm a big name, Bella said as she looked over at Dom. Like you are around here. Can't throw a stone without it landing at the feet of someone that's raced you and lost. Bella Sawyer, New Mexico. Heard some crazy shit that you pulled down there. You win a lot of races, and if you do lose, it's not because of you. Rolled a GT, 17 times? You did some homework, Bella said with a smile. I did. It was part of her backstory. The FBI was really good at funneling information where they needed. It didn't take much to get her story built up. Jesse frowned. Oh wow. That's a bad crash. Yeah, got clipped. Pissed off some people with my skill. I suppose they clipped me. I hit a grass patch, caught my tire weird, and I rolled down into a ravine. Landed upside down. Crawled out. Busted my shoulder, and concussion. Car exploded after I walked away, trying to climb up the ravine. She repeated her backstory, no hesitancy. Damn. Dom said. That's rough. Well, I built a new car, and it's less likely to roll now, Bella said, and then looked back at the skyline. All right, we should be able to hoist this out, but the state Route 20 in, and pull the pistons off this to reuse, she said. Dom nodded. I'll get the crane, he said, and disappeared. Bella's apartment. Later. Bella felt the ache in her muscles. She set her keys on the table, and then right when she got her stuff ready for a shower, there was a knock on the door. She went and opened it, seeing Brian and Jasper. She let them in, shutting the door behind them. Brian nodded to her hand. What did you do? Busted my knuckle taking an engine out of the skyline, Bella said. So Jazz, you're here. Your note was vague. Had to be vague. Tanner thinks Toretto is our guy, Jasper said. Bella shook her head. No, I've been working the shop for 3 weeks now. Dom is way too controlled for that. He has a previous record. He beat a guy with a torque wrench, Jasper said. Got prison time for it. He races illegally, and part of a gang. A gang? Brian said, raising a brow. No, those guys that follow Toretto are literally like his family. Some of them grew up together. Bella nodded. Race wars, Johnny Tran is going to race. However, there's a race happening close to Tran's territory that I'm going to take time to look around, see if I can see anything in the garages. Plus, if Dom and the others were ripping off trucks, I would see evidence around the shop. I've been to his house, and there's no signs of stolen merchandise there. Tell Tanner that his hunches aren't valid. We move when I say we move. I'll rip the FBI trump card if I must. I was sent here because LAPD couldn't do their job. No offense, Brian, and I'm going to do this right. He wants results. He's going to have to wait for them. This operation isn't an easy one, and it's not one that will happen overnight. I get it. Just stay focused on the task, Jasper said. Wednesday, meet me at the strip. We'll do some races in our cars, including Brian's new right. We'll hit up the race next Friday. Run some interference with LAPD. We need to check for tire patterns at the race. The last hijacking, we pulled very specific prints. Got it, Bella said. And tell Tanner not to send more agents in. The more people randomly showing up makes this shit look suspicious. Jasper smiled. I told him you would be a firecracker. I'll head back, fill in the team. Have good night, Bella, he said and left her and Brian there alone. Bella blew out a breath. Shit. What? They sent Jasper to keep us in check, she muttered and looked at him. Shower. Brian smiled. Why not? He said and pulled his shirt off and followed her to the bathroom, where they stripped completely naked and got in the shower together. It was always just fucking, nothing serious, and Brian typically either left or slept on the couch. Bella had a hard time staying into it when her thoughts went back to Dom. The instant thrills he sent through her. She got so caught up in her head that she didn't get her release she wanted, but she pretended otherwise. Friday. Race day. Bella and Brian leaned against their cars as they watched people file in to race each other and blast some loud music. Jasper arrived shortly after Bella and Brian did, and walked over, leaning on Bella's car and looked at her. Anything? He murmured, leaning in to kiss her cheek and whisper in her ear. Bella smiled. No, she turned, looking around, seeing Dom pull up, Vince with him in another car, Mia riding with him, and then Edward and Jake in another car. Jesse was riding with Dom. They walked over towards Bella, joining their little crowd. Jesse smiled at Bella. Hey Bella. Bella smiled at Jesse. Hey Jess. You racing tonight? Vince asked Bella as he came up. I might. You looking to lose to someone tonight? Bella asked. Jesse snickered, but Vince glared at him. Who said I would lose? The last time you raced against her and lost. Dom put in. His deeper baritone voice sent a shiver through Bella sometimes, and that sometime was now. She tried to brush it off, and looked to Jesse to focus on something else instead. Vince frowned. That was different. Bella smiled. No different, she said and looked to Jesse. Do you race? Oh, I haven't in a while. Jesse said. Bella nodded and tossed him her keys. All right. Race Vince here. If you win, I'll give you $2,000. Jesse caught her keys. W what? Beat Vince. My car can go 0-60 in under 3 seconds. I've seen the way you drive, Vince, and I know what's under your hood. My car is the better car. To prove it, Jesse here is going to beat you. Vince rolled his eyes. It's not the car that wins the race. Dom shrugged. Sometimes. The spider is insanely fast, Vince. You don't think I can beat Jess? Didn't say that, Dom said with a smile. Vince nodded. All right, what do I get if I win, and he loses? You get a good job, man. You outraced my spider. Bella said and looked at Jesse. You know how she feels. Give it a whirl, she said, and the Vince and Jesse got to their starting points. Dom stood next to Bella. You just let Jesse drive your very expensive car. You're not worried he's going to dent it? The only thing I'd worry about is if he gets hurt, but I trust Jesse. He'll be fine, Bella said, smiling at Dom. Watch. The race started, and as predicted, Jesse shot ahead. The Spider was the faster car. Some of racing was the driver, but no matter how great of a driver you were, if your car wasn't faster than your opponent, it made it hard for you to win a race. Jasper and Brian stood on the other side of Bella, watching as Vince and Jesse raced it out towards the end. Vince pulled ahead, but Jesse pulled farther ahead, and neither used NOS to win. Jesse pulled around, parking the Spider back behind Bella, and got out smiling. Oh, that was incredible. The Spider really is amazing, Jesse raved. Dom smiled, seeing how excited Jesse was. Great job, Jess. Vince walked over. All right, yeah, the Spider is faster, he mumbled. Bella reached in her back pocket and pulled $2,000 out and handed it to Jesse. What? I told you. Bella said with a nod. All yours, she said and watched Jesse take it hesitantly. Wow, Jesse murmured. I can add an upgrade to my Nissan. He said and smiled. That's incredible. Brian smiled, elbowing Bella. You just made his day. Bella smiled at Brian. Well, it's worth it. Bella nodded. Go do your thing, she said quietly and then focused back on Dom and the others, while Brian snuck off. So far, Bella didn't see any tires that would match the prints they recovered from the scene, but Johnny Tran wasn't there. After a few others raced, Brian returned, nodding to Bella, and then they heard sirens and had to split, like the last time. Bella's apartment. Brian and Jasper met Bella back at her apartment, after everyone split like that at the race. So, there's several electronic merchandise in the garage, but the cars that Tran has sitting are missing the engines. There's time until Race Wars, but it's strange that Tran is just waiting so long without practice. I have seen several street racers down at the strip, driving and practicing, Jasper said. Bella nodded. It does seem strange. Tanner is going to want to move on this immediately, Jasper said. Bella shook her head. What we have is circumstantial. We must compare the item to what's missing on the trucks. Serial numbers. We can't blow in there and start arresting people based on illegally obtained pictures. You're not wrong, Brian said. Do you think you can hold Tanner off? I don't know. I'm stuck undercover with both of you. My contact is limited. I'll try. Bella nodded. All right. Well, let's hope for the best then. That was the plan, at least for now. They didn't have much choice in the matter. They could only hope that Tanner wasn't a complete idiot. The next day, Bella pulled up at Toretto's and got out, like normal. She walked in, finding Jesse where he always was in the garage. Where's Dom? Office. There was another hit early in the morning, another truck hijacking. More merchandise was stolen, and Bella just knew that Tanner was itching to haul Tran in, but Jasper's text that morning said that Tanner was being told to stand down by their director from the FBI, until they go solid enough leads. Bella walked inside, going to Dom's office, and she knocked on the door and leaned against the wall. Dom opened it, looking at her. Hey. Vince still moody about last night's race. Of course. He's still at the house with Ed and Jake. He said, and then pulled her into the office, shutting the door behind her. His mouth covered hers, his hands gripping at her hips, and slid up under her shirt. The roughness of his hands felt oddly nice against her skin. He kept moving up, his hands pushing under her bra, groping her, his thumbs rolling over her nipples, causing her to suck in a breath. She was aroused, extremely, ready to bust open. Her hands moved to his shirt, pulling it off, so she could feel his skin. He removed her shirt too, unhooking her bra and then hoisting he up, and pinning her against the door, his mouth moving to cover her nipple, and she gasped again, pleasure rolling through her. She wanted more of him, and soon they were both naked, and he had her hoisted up against the door, his hard cock sliding into her. He was the only one that she ever had unprotected sex with, and it made no sense, but he caused her brain to shut off sometimes. His thrusts were powerful, stroking her from the inside out, his tip plunging in, hitting her center, repeatedly, until she was clenching around him tight, her orgasm washing against his tip. It felt so extreme, as she shuddered, his mouth on her throat now, sending more tingles into her nerves. Everything around her didn't matter anymore. The roar of her heartbeat in her ears continued to pound, as Dom did, pressing into the deepest parts of her, filling her up, and then shuddering himself, as he released, coating her insides heavily. His breathing was erratic, as was his heart, and it matched hers. His mouth covered hers again, kissing her lightly, before pulling out his cock dripping as he did. He stooped to pick up their clothes. They got dressed in silence. Bella was calmer this time, more relaxed, but she had just had the best sex of her life. Something about Dom got her, and that sent more shivers through her. Dom smiled at her, reaching over, and brushing a strand of her hair back behind her ear. You're beautiful. Bella blinked a few times. What? You heard me, he said, dropping his hand. He studied her a few moments before leaning in and kissing her again. Bella kissed him back and then looked at him. I should go help Jesse, she said, and opened the door and walked out. Her mind was reeling. She couldn't be like this, not with Dom. A little while later, Brian pulled up in the Racer's Edge truck. He got out and walked over, smiling at Bella. Yo. I finished it, Brian said. The car? Bella asked as she leaned against the counter, eating a sandwich. Brian nodded and then reached over, taking Bella's sandwich and taking a bite, and Bella glared at him. What? It's not like my saliva hasn't been in your mouth before, he teased, and took another bite. Don't you ever learn? Bella said, shaking her head, taking her sandwich back. When am I going to see this car? Jesse was interested too. Brian had asked him for some advice on some parts, and he gave his best opinion. Yeah, Bri, when are we going to see the car? Race Wars. Brian grinned. That's not fair. Such a tease, Jesse said, and went towards the back, getting sodas for everyone. Where's Mia? Brian asked. Bella raised a brow. She's at the house. She'll be in later. She does online school right now. Right. Brian said with a nod. So, can I crash at the apartment tonight? Dom and Jesse had returned to the front, carrying drinks. Bella took the Dr. Pepper and looked at Brian. Why, what's wrong with your apartment? Nothing. You like my couch that much? Bella teased, taking a drink of the Dr. Pepper. Dom opened his beer. You need a place to crash, come crash at my pad. He said to Brian. Bella smiled and then her phone rang, and she pulled it from her pocket. Yo, what's up, Jazz? Is Dom there with you? Yup. Okay. Jasper said and hung up. Alrighty then. Bad connection I suppose, she said and pocketed her phone. Brian raised a brow, taking a drink of the Dr. Pepper Jesse brought him. Where's Vince and the others? Aren't they usually stalking Bella? Dom chuckled. Nah, they're at work, he said and took a drink of his beer. So, I hear you got a new car built, Brian. There's a race happening in 2 weeks as a warm-up to Race Wars. Nah, I'm gonna hold her back until Race Wars, Brian said with a smile. It's going to blow Bella away. Oh, it's cute you think that you can blow me away, Bella said. You better put your money where your mouth is then, Brian taunted back playfully. Bella snorted. Always do. Don't start crying when lose and owe me another 15 grand, she finished her Dr. Pepper. Brian smiled. You're something else. He pushed away from the bar. I've got to get back to work. See you later, he said, and then kissed her cheek and she playfully rubbed it off and rolled her eyes. Don't forget my NOS, she called after him and he waved a hand, getting in the truck and driving away. Dom studied her, watched the interaction. They were friends, he could tell. Brian was playful and laid back. He owed you 15 grand. Oh, Brian has owed me more money than I can count. I just stopped taking it a long time ago, and now I just tease him for it, she said with a smile. I don't really need money. Dom nodded. It was true. Bella Sawyer owned her own garage in New Mexico, not just 1 or 2, but 10. She was an inspiration. Bella looked to Jesse. You ready to fit this engine back in? Hell yeah, he said with a smile, and they went back to work. Later, as the auto shop closed, Bella was the last one. She had to check things out a little more. Jasper's call earlier had her thinking. Something had to have happened for him to call her like that. Dom walked through to the front. Jesse leave? Yeah, headed back to the house. Dom reached for her then, pulling her to him, his mouth covering hers like it had earlier. They were alone in the shop now. Come home with me. Bella looked at him. Dom, I like you, Dom said. I just want to wake up with you next to me for once. He murmured, and then kissed her again. Bella kissed him back and then swallowed. She studied him. She knew that he wasn't the one pulling the jobs on the trucks. Tanner was pulling at straws. Tran had to be their guy. So, she nodded. All right. Dom's house. Bella pulled up at Dom's house, with him. He left his car at the shop and rode back with her. It was late, but people were still up, music was playing. They walked inside, Vince glancing up at them. Come to party. No, came to crash, Bella said and then took Vince's beer from him for herself. Hey, that's my beer. Was it? Bella asked and took a long drink. Dom smiled, his hand on her lower back. Vince, can I talk to you? He said and Dom looked at Bella. First room, on the right at the top of the stairs, he murmured in her ear. Bella nodded, and finished the beer, before climbing the stairs to Dom's room. She sat on the bed and was surprised at its softness. His room was just ordinary. Plain, nothing out of place. He was organized, and she could appreciate that in a man. She was organized too. She took her shoes off and then lay back on the bed, staring up at the ceiling. A few long moments later, Dom came into the room, closing the door behind him. He smiled over at her as he walked towards her. His hands tugged at her pants, and she smiled up at him, lifting her hips as he peeled them off her. He leaned up, taking his shirt off and tossing it in the floor with her pants. A few moments later, she was naked on his bed. His mouth moved over her breast, sucking in a nipple, his tongue curving around it. She sighed, a pleasured sigh, and arched against him. His hands moved over her body, his rough skin against her soft skin. His hands toyed with her, sending thrills through her. His fingers moved expertly over her clit, getting complete rises out of her, moans dripping from her lips. Tension built in her belly, pooling there, ready to release. His mouth consumed hers, her moans drunk in by him, and then she was arching up again, the sensation ready to burst, and when she did, he removed his hand, and she realized he was completely naked now. He thrust his hard cock into her as she spilled out. He was inside her deep, plunging towards her center, unleashing a continuous orgasm that rolled over her from head to toe. He pushed faster, deeper, until he was swelling tight and busting open inside her, jerking his hips forward into her. They were both panting, from the pleasure of it all, and the intensity of their own orgasms. They stayed locked together like that for a few moments, before he slid out of her, rolling to his side, and pulling her against him. She rested her head on his chest, her arm draped over him. She felt relaxed, and so she closed her eyes, and for the first time, fell asleep with a man beside her. 1 month later, Race Wars Day, Johnny Tran's house and garages were raided. Tanner got tired of waiting and wanted to move, against Bella's advice, and disobeyed the direct order of their FBI liaison. It was a bust. The electronics were purchased legally, and it was a waste of manpower and resources. Bella was angry that Tanner hadn't listened. They needed more evidence, and they needed time, but Tanner was constantly jumping the gun. Bella felt Tran was good for it, and they had to prove it, but again, that took time. Time that Tanner said they were running out of. 2 weeks ago, another truck was hijacked, and the goods stolen, and LAPD was getting antsy. Jasper was trying to hold them off. Jasper agreed that Toretto was looking good for the stolen merchandise, but she didn't believe it. So, while she was at Race Wars, she was looking at cars, trying to see if any of them would match the prints from the other crime scenes. If it wasn't Tran, then it was someone in the street racer community. Dom came up behind Bella, his hands pulling at her waist, settling her against him, while they all drank beer, and waited for their race. They were going according to sign up. Brian didn't like that Bella and Dom got so close, but she assured him it was because she was investigating him more. So, Brian saw the opportunity with Mia. He said fuck it, it's not like he was doing anything wrong. He didn't anticipate how many feelings would arise by just sleeping with Mia. He wondered how Bella was able to keep the two separate but realized that FBI trained harder for this. Jess, you're up man. Vince said. Jesse blew out a breath, his nerves alive. He grabbed his pink slip from his pocket and looked at it. Bella frowned. Jess, you're not racing for slips, are you? Jesse looked at Bella. I don't have anything else to bet in. Bella leaned away from Dom, reaching into her pocket on the side of her pants. Don't race for slips, she said. Who are you racing? Tran. Jesse said, his voice sounding nervous. Bella looked at Brian, and then back to Jesse. Okay. Don't race for slips. Have you seen his car, Jess? I mean, I've seen it, but I don't know what's under his hood. Tran has a turbocharge, 2 of them, and dual NOS. Brian said. He ordered those parts 3 days ago. Jesse shook his head. I got this. I have dual NOS too. I can win this. Jess, Bella murmured and then handed him $5,000. Don't race slips. Bella, I can't take your money. You can. Bella said. Racing for slips can be dangerous, especially with someone like Tran. I can win. Jesse said. Bella nodded. I know you can, but hey, money is better, and I don't think Tran is going to race slips. She lied. She knew that Tran was going to smoke Jesse. There was no way, with Jess's skyline, will he be able to outrace Tran. Dom looked at Jesse. Jess, listen to Bella, he said. Jesse shook his head. Thank you Bella, but I can't take your money, he said and then he walked off. Bella started after him, but Dom grabbed her hand. She looked at Dom, frowning. Dom, Tran's going to wipe the floor with him. I know. Dom said. I know. There's nothing I can do to stop Jesse. If he's not going to listen to you, he's not going to listen to me. Bella closed her eyes. He should take my spider, race. Then what? Let Jesse lose your spider to Tran, Dom asked. Brian looked out towards Jesse. He had a bad feeling about this. They all watched as Jesse and Tran took their places at the starting line. When the race began, Jesse lurched ahead, and Bella held her breath as he barreled down the straightaway. Quarter-mile races could make or break someone. Jesse was doing well, hitting his NOS a little early, and Bella shook her head. Damn it, Jess, too soon. She muttered. He used NOS in the beginning, to jump-start himself, and Tran had saved both of his. Tran's car was the faster car, and when he hit his NOS, and overtook Jesse, winning the race, she shook her head, running a hand through her hair. She saw Jesse panic, and drive off, away from race wars. Shit, Dom, he's leaving. Fuck. Dom said, and before they could do anything, Tran was there. Where's the punk going with my car? Tran spat. Getting it cleaned for you. Dom said, he'll be back. Tran glared at Dom. Your little street thugs better watch it. Dom growled. Are you threatening me? Tran was in Dom's face now and Bella inserted herself between the two. When Tran raised his hand, Bella caught his hand, twisting his arm behind his back and dropping him to his knees, locking his wrist, and when he struggled, her knee came up and connected with his face, busting his nose a little. She released him for him to get to his feet. Try me, Bella said, her voice calm, but short. Tran spit blood on the ground, glaring at Bella, before walking away. Bella turned and looked at Dom. Jess is going to come back, right? Yeah. Dom said, and looked Tran walk away, his posse falling in behind him. He looked back at Bella. You didn't have to do that. I did. Bella said, and looked to Brian. You're up against Jazz, she said, nodding to the screen displaying Brian and Jazz's numbers. Brian nodded. All right, your race is tomorrow, right? Bella nodded. Smoke him, she said with a smile and watched him walk away to go get to his starting place. Dom pulled his phone out, sending a message to Jesse, in hopes that he'll answer back. Time was running out. Vince and Edward seemed uneasy about something, but Bella didn't comment. Dom. We need Jess to come back. Dom nodded. I know, he said and then sighed. He looked towards the camper trailer and walked towards it. He was taming his own anger down, so he could focus on tonight. Bella followed him into the trailer. Dom, Jesse is stupid to run like that. Dom blew out a breath. I know. Bella murmured and then she went to him, reaching a hand up and brushing it over his cheek. He's going to be okay. Dom studied her. Can you come with me somewhere tonight? Bella nodded. Yeah. She leaned up, her mouth connecting with his, kissing him, her tongue sliding against his. As the sun went down in the desert, the races thinned out, but were still ongoing. Dom, Vince, Jake, Edward, and Bella stood off to the side. Mia was upset with something, but Bella didn't want to pry. All right. Let's go, he said, and Vince frowned. What about Jess? He's not answering me. Let him cool off. We can handle this, Dom said. Bella will ride with me. Bella wasn't sure what was happening, but she stayed quiet. They loaded up in cars, Bella riding with Dom, and they drove away from the desert. They pulled up at a different location, a large tower obscuring the view of 3 cars draped in black covers. Dom got out, as did the others, and they uncovered the cars. Bella's heart sank. This couldn't be happening. All right, last one. We don't do this anymore. Vince, you and Edward pull ahead from the front. Jake, you have the left, and Bella and I will flank the right. We do this and get done, it's over. No more of this, Dom explained. Bella swallowed. What are we doing? Vince looked at her and then to Dom. You didn't tell her. Well, we don't have time to explain it all, Dom said. Let's move, he said, and he got in first car, and Bella followed, sitting down in the passenger seat. The tire treads matched the prints from the scenes. She closed her eyes, as Dom pulled away, racing towards the highway. Dom. Bella said. What are we doing? Dom sighed. Tran. That's what. Got us stuck with this. We're robbing a truck carrying electronics. He has a cousin that owns an electronics store, marks up receipts for the merchandise. It was part of the agreement I made to keep Vince out of trouble when he fucked Tran's sister, and things went bad. We're not allowed on their turf, but we have to finish out this last job, be done with the agreement, and Vince gets to live another day. He muttered. Tran's cousin pays out for the merchandise as well, and so it's an easy cash flow too. He explained as he shifted gears, spotting the semi-trailer truck up ahead. He looked over at her. Are you okay? Bella shook her head. God damn it, Dom. She ran her hands over her face, through her hair. What? Dom. She looked at him, shaking her head, but the Vince and Jake already started the maneuver. Dom shifted gears again, pulling up beside the truck, while Vince and Edward pulled up in front. Was she really going to stay quiet and let this happen? She couldn't believe this was happening and that she had been so wrong. Her phone rang and she glanced at it. It was Brian, of course. It's Brian. Bella muttered. Dom saw Vince leap onto the truck, and then the truck driver tried to shake him loose, and Vince swung across the hood of the truck. Then there was a shot. Shit, Dom, he's got a shotgun, Jake said in the walkie. Fuck. Dom said. Bella shook her head. She knew that this day was coming. The truck drivers were going to strike back, and she just knew it. Fuck. Bella said. Dom, we have to get Vince off that truck. I know. Vince's arm got tangled in the metal wire that he used for the grapple hook, and it was mangling his arm up, and the truck driver continued to fire the shotgun in Vince's direction. Bella blew out a breath, unfastening her seatbelt. Her phone rang again and she answered it this time. Brian not. Mia is with me. Are you seriously fucking robbing a truck right now? No, don't fucking lie to me, Bella. Brian, I can't do this right now. I'm sort of busy. Tanner is going to lock your ass up. You're aiding and abetting. No, I'm trying to make sure no one dies. Tanner can fuck off, she said and hung up. Dom frowned. Who is Tanner? Bella didn't answer him. Dom, get up on the right. I'm going to get to him. She said and pushed open the sunroof, and Dom complied, pulling up as close as he could. Bella climbed up onto the roof the car carefully, and then waited, leaping onto the side of the truck. Vince, hang in there, man, she said, and then she unwound the wire on his arm, avoiding the shot from the shotgun barely, and it grazed her shoulder. She unclipped the wire from the harness Vince was wearing, and then she motioned to Dom to get closer. Edward's tire blew up front and he spun out, the truck swerving, and Bella kept her grip on Vince, but she saw Edward's car roll, flying off the side of the highway. She focused back on Vince, and Dom got close enough, and she shoved Vince off onto the hood of the car, and he grabbed the hood with his good hand and hung on. Bella looked to Dom, and then the truck driver shot again, clipping her side, and she groaned. Stop fucking shooting. She yelled at the truck driver. But he didn't listen, and he shot again, and she avoided it. Dom pulled in close enough for Bella to leap onto the car roof, and she clung to the opening of the sunroof. Dom brought the car to a stop, and Bella released the car, and rushed around to the front, right when Brian and Mia were pulling up. Vince groaned. His arm was tore up really bad, and he had a gunshot in his lower right side. Hang in there, Vince, Bella said, getting him on the ground, pulling her belt off and tying off his arm. Bella pulled her phone out, dialing 911. Her eyes met Brian's. Go check Edward and Jake. Now, she said, and Brian hesitated before jogging off to check on Edward in the upside-down car. 911, what's your emergency? This is Agent Bella Swan, ID number F95674, requesting medflight. I have a gunshot victim, age 30, weighs about 180. Requesting assistance to Highway 79, mile marker 124. Bella didn't look at Dom, she looked at Vince, seeing the agonizing pain on his face. Copy, Agent Swan, medflight is headed your direction. Bella nodded, hanging up. She looked at Mia. Stay with him, she said. Dom, let's go. You're a cop, Dom yelled. Not now. Let's go. Brian, she yelled as he jogged up the ravine. Edward? Dead, Brian said. Did you call it in? Yes, stay on the scene. Jake, get the fuck out of here now. Jake nodded, getting in his car and driving off. Bella, you're not, Brian murmured as he walked up to her. Bella swallowed. I have to, she said. Don't give me 24 hours. You fucking realize what you're doing, don't you? Brian said. You're throwing an entire career away. Bella shook her head. I have to find Jesse, and I have to get Dom out of here. Make sure Vince gets to the hospital. Tanner is going to hunt you down. Let him, Bella said, and turned her back to Brian, her eyes looking at Dom, who was angry. Let's go. We have to go now. Police are going to be all over, she said and got in the car, the driver's seat. Dom hesitated. Dom. Dom looked at Brian. You're a cop too. Brian nodded. Go, he said and looked to Mia who was crying. Go now. Dom looked at his sister and his friend one last time before getting in the car with Bella, and she spun the car around and drove off. Bella took her phone out and tossed it out the window. She was quiet as she drove, heading back towards Dom's house to hopefully figure out what to do. Her mind was reeling, her heart pounding. You're a cop. FBI agent, Bella finally said. I thought it was Tran. Dom, I swear I never figured it was you. Dom looked at her. You've been pretending to. I'm not pretending. I care about what happens to you all. Which is why I just fucking sunk my career. Every fucking thing. She slammed her hand on the steering wheel. She shook her head. Fuck. She cursed and she pulled up at the tower that Dom left their cars at. She sat there in silence for a minute. I trusted you, Dom said, shaking his head. Vince said that it was risky bringing you in on the deal, because he thought you were too good for this lifestyle. He said that you were likely. Bella looked at Dom, shaking her head, and getting out of the car. Come on, let's find Jesse. We have to leave LA. If we don't do it now, then Tanner and every part of the LAPD is going to come down on you. Vince is hurt. Yeah, he's hurt, but he's with Mia and Brian. I'll get Vince out when I get you all safe. Now let's stop wasting time. Bella said and got in Dom's car. Dom felt betrayed and hurt. He was falling for her, and she turned out to be a cop, who was investigating Tran, not him. He sighed and got in the car with her, and they drove away from the tower and headed towards Dom's house to start. Dom's house. Bella pulled up, seeing Jake. Jake, Edward is gone, man. I know. What the fuck happened out there? The truckers decided since LAPD wasn't moving fast enough in bringing the bandits to justice, that they would take matters into their own hands. After the last hijacking, a bunch of truckers threatened, and despite the warnings, they obviously didn't fucking listen. I don't understand. How do you know all this? Bella is fucking FBI, Dom said, and walked towards his garage. Jake looked at Bella. No. I am. Now where would Jesse go? We need to find him before Tran finds him. Brian pulled up just then with Mia and got out. Brian, why are you here? Bella said, her hand going to her gun that she tucked in the back of her jeans. Calm the fuck down. I'm not here to arrest anyone. Tanner is sending units to the crash site and taking statements. Vince was lifted to the hospital, he's okay. Jasper is standing by to bust him out of the hospital. What the fuck, Brian? You can't bring Jazz into this. You can't even do this. I'm already throwing my fucking life away, you shouldn't. Bella. I don't care. We need to find Jess. That's what matters. I'll worry about the rest later. I'll help you get out of the States, and then try to cover somehow. You'll lose your badge. I know. Brian said with a nod, and then Jesse pulled up then in the skyline. Dom rushed out of the garage, hearing Jess's car pull up. Oh, thank God. Bella said, and rushed towards Jesse, her arms coming around him. You're okay. Jesse had tears running down his face. I didn't mean to, I just panicked, and I should have listened to you, Bella. I just should have. And Bella heard motorcycles speeding down the street, and she glanced in their direction. Everyone down, she yelled, and everyone scattered, as bullets flew around them. Bella felt the sting in her leg as she pushed Jesse out of the way, behind the car. She took her gun out and fired at the two men on the bikes. She got one and Brian shot the other. Bella half ran towards he bikes, her weapon drawn as she checked for pulses. She nodded to Brian and then limped back towards Jesse. You, okay? Yeah. Jesse breathed out, his heart slamming in his chest. Dom got to his feet and looked at Bella. Bella. We have to go. Now. Bella said and looked at Brian. You don't have to do this. I do. Take care, Bella. Brian said and then pulled her in for a tight hug. Take care of them, he murmured. Out of all of this, he knew that he could trust Bella, and she was taking a gamble on Dom, and so was he. Bella looked at Dom and then to Jesse. Let's go, she said and helped Jesse to his feet, and they climbed into a car together and they drove off together, her, Dom, Jesse, and Jake. Mia was not a part of the truck robberies, and Brian would see to it that she didn't have to go on the run. Bella was quiet as she drove, leading out of LA, before the police would descend on everything. Her leg hurt, her side hurt, and her shoulder hurt. She knew that they were all grazes, and she wouldn't bleed out, but she would have to stop somewhere to get it patched up. Dom reached a hand over, grabbing Bella's and lacing his fingers with hers. She glanced over at him. "Thank you." Bella nodded and looked back at the road. They would likely have to head to Mexico. She knew a guy at the border that could get them across. Baja, Mexico. 6 months later. The beach was so white and pristine. It was a private beach, one that had a nice house on it. The waters were so crystal clear that you could see the bottom and see the tropical fish swimming in and around the reefed rocks on parts of the shore. It was a paradise. Bella looked out on the water. Her khaki shorts stopped right above her knee. She wore a white blouse that buttoned up the front, and a white tank top under it since the blouse was rather see-through. Her hair was down, and it traveled down her back in chocolate waves. It had been 6 months of being a she did have Jasper liquidate her assets before the FBI came down on everything. Bella had money, that wasn't a problem. Never was. Her father had been a cop, one that left behind an inheritance from life insurance. Her mother was somewhere out there, she just didn't care enough about Bella. Once she had her money, that Jasper carefully covered up, she was set. Everyone was set for that matter. She worried about Brian, Mia, and she worried about Jasper. If anything were to happen to them because of her, she wouldn't forgive herself. "You're thinking hard about something again." Dom's deep voice sounded behind her. He was calmer than she was, or at least he didn't show how uneasy he was. They had been here in Baja, Mexico, 6 months. Peacefully just living. It was a life that could go on forever, but racing was in their blood, and he knew that she itched to just drive fast, just as much as he wanted to. He reached for her, his hands going to her waist, and she leaned back against him, and he kissed her neck. "Just thinking about the others," she murmured. "You gave up your life for me." Dom murmured. "I wish you hadn't done that." Bella turned and looked at him, her arms wounding up, looping around his neck. "I love you," she murmured. Dom's dark eyes met hers. That much had been true. He loved her, with everything in him, and she was running because of him. She was set to a life of being a fugitive forever, never being able to go back home to see family and friends, because she fell in love with him. "I love you too," he said back, his mouth covering hers. "I made a choice, Dom," she said, as she pulled away from him. "I chose you, because I care. I couldn't see any of you get thrown away." "We committed those crimes," Dom said. "I know. You're supposed to uphold the law." Bella pursed her lips together as she stared at him. "Sometimes, fuck the law," she said. "Dom, I love you. Let's just be happy that we're together," she said and leaned against him again, his strong arms coming around her, embracing her. Miami, Florida. Brian rolled out of bed. Hearing his phone ring, he answered gruffly. "Hello. You want to race?" "Yeah, 4 minutes." Brian got to his feet, pulling his shirt on, and then grabbed his keys as he shoved his feet in his boots, and he was out the door. He got into his Nissan Skyline, modeled slightly different than Jess's old Skyline. It was a brilliant silver, with electric blue markings, and he hightailed it to the race. When he got there, people cheered, and the other 3 racers that needed him to be in the race groaned. Brian got out of his car and smiled, walking over to a man, shorter than he was, with mocha skin and dark eyes. "Hey Tej," he said, and they did a fist bump and a little secret handshake before hugging in a brotherly fashion. "You guys needed a 4th, here's your 4th, Tej said, and a girl, tall, thin, with olive skin and long dark hair smiled. "Yeah, you brought us Bullet, now we're going to have to race harder," she said, and then slid into her hot pink Honda S2000. "Racers, get ready," Tej said, and Brian got back in his car and lined up with the other 3. When the race started, the other 2 cars lurched ahead, and Suki and Brian brought up the back. It didn't take long for Brian to overtake second, and then the fight began for first. It was a close race, and they rounded their corners sharply, barreling down the road towards the bridge. It started lifting, separating in the middle, and Brian hit his NOS, his car sailing across the other car, and landing in front, pulling ahead of the race, and winning. He spun around at the finish line, and got out, people cheering. Tej handed him the 20 grand collected for the race, and then Brian took 8 grand and handed it back to Tej, and he pocketed the rest. "Police. We gotta roll," someone shouted, and everyone scattered, and Brian got in his car and drove off, fast, rounding the corner, and shifting into a lower gear, to blend with traffic. But it wasn't enough, and soon he was being followed by police. Shit. Brian cursed, and then picked up his speed, rounding the next right at the red light, and racing away. When his car started slowing, and his dash blinking in and out, he hit the steering wheel. Fuck, he said as he coasted to a stop. He was surrounded by cops now, and he sighed, getting out, his hands up. Safe house. Miami, Florida. Brian looked around as he walked in, escorted by 2 undercover Miami police officers. When he saw Bilkins, one of the agents that was on the Toretto case, he cursed. You're fucking kidding me, right? Bilkins was older, early 50s, his mocha skin, rough with his age, and he sported a dark mustache, completing the bald appearance. He was dressed casually, a short-sleeved Hawaiian button-up shirt, and some khaki pants. His gun was holstered at his waist, and he was relaxed. Welcome, O'Connor. It's good to see you again. The most you have me on is street racing if you can prove it, Brian said, crossing his arms. Relax. You served your time, lost your gun and badge for the Toretto mishap. How is Toretto doing? Bilkins asked. Brian snorted. I haven't talked to Dom since that day, and you know it. Right. Bilkins nodded. Well, I brought you here for another matter. A matter that I hope you're interested in. I'm not interested in tangling up with feds or local cops here. I'm done with law enforcement, Brian retorted. Even if it's a chance at a clean slate? Bilkins asked. Brian sighed. There's always a catch with these things. No catch. You do us a favor, we do you a favor, Bilkins said with a nod. Brian studied Bilkins and glanced around the room. All right, I'll bite. Drugs. Bilkins said. Drugs? Brian raised a brow, crossing his arms across his chest. Bilkins nodded. Drugs are being run into Miami, but they're moving the drugs up through Mexico somehow. Now, we know that the drug lord is Arturo Braga. He's got a spider network going on here in Miami, but also in LA. We want you to travel back to LA. Work that angle. We have this part of the cost covered. You want me to go back to LA? Brian said. Why would I do that? It makes no sense. If we know the drugs are coming into Miami and flooding the streets here, then why hunt me down in Miami, just to send me back to LA? Because, you know LA, you've lived LA, and that's where Arturo Braga lives. We just don't know what he looks like. There's a racing scene there, and it. Wait. Brian held up a hand. You need me to help you because I'm a driver. Bilkins nodded and sighed. Yes, that is why we need you. Brian started laughing. I'm not the best driver. You're a damn good one. Bilkins said. You'll be given a partner to help you with the case. Brian sighed. Clean slate? Can I get that in writing? Bilkins nodded. Of course, he said. Brian couldn't believe he was going to do this again. Los Angeles. A week later, Bilkins and Brian walked into a safe house in LA, one that was a little nicer than the one in Miami. Deja vu. Brian muttered. He looked at Tanner and shook his head. Fuck no, he said and turned and looked at Bilkins. Just wait. Fuck this Bilkins. I'm not working with Tanner. Tanner rolled his eyes. Like I have a choice? Sit your ass down, he barked out at Brian. Brian looked at Bilkins. I swear to God, Bilkins. He muttered and sat down, and turned his attention on Tanner. What? He said, snappy. You're going to be given cars. Since this is joint task, U.S. Customs, FBI, and LAPD will be in cooperation with each other. Your partner here is David. Tanner said, pointing to David. Brian raised a brow and stood, walking over to David. All right, David. Have you ever driven a car that handles NOS? Do you know how to drive a stick shift? Brian asked. David looked to Tanner, and Tanner sighed. All right. No, he's not going to work. If I'm going to be riding around trying to bust drug dealers, I want my own team. A team that isn't going to fuck me over in the end, Brian said, looking at Bilkins. Bilkins nodded. All right, who do you have in mind? I want Roman Pierce. He's up in Barstow. Next, I want Bella. Tanner frowned. She's a fugitive. Bilkins held up a hand, cutting Tanner off. Bella is missing. She's been underground since the Toretto incident. She's a fugitive for a reason, O'Connor. You can't think that she'll come back to help with a drug case? She will if you offer her what you offered me, Brian said matter of fact. Bilkins shook his head. She's off the table. I can't trust that. You can't trust her? Bella is one of the only ones I trust on this planet. Did you know that it was Tran and his men that was operating the electronic stolen goods? Despite Tanner fucking shit up with his premature takedown of Tran, Tran was blackmailing Toretto into robbing the trucks, so Tran wouldn't kill part of his family. Oh, and the guy he beat with the torque wrench. He was the guy that helped kill his own father, so don't tell me that you can't trust Bella. You should have trusted her when she told you about Tran. You should have trusted her. She's off somewhere with Toretto now. She covered for him. Let him escape. Regardless of the ringleader, Toretto still robbed trucks. Tanner shouted. Brian looked at Tanner. Fuck you. You shouldn't even be standing here right now with how shitty of a cop you are. Tanner got up, like he was going to hit Brian. Go ahead, make my day. Brian scoffed at Tanner. All right. Settle down. Bilkins said, trying to keep the peace. Do you think you can get Bella here? If we promise her immunity and pardons? Brian looked at Bilkins. Maybe. No promises. I haven't talked to Bella since I got out of lockup, and it was brief, because you know. You guys like to track shit, he said. Bilkins nodded. All right. Call her. Get her here if you can. We have to move fast. Baja, Mexico. Bella threw Jessie a beer when she walked through the beach house to the sun porch. All right. So what's going on in the Dominica Republic? She asked, sitting down at the large patio table next to Dom. There was a man by the name of Han, that Dom met a couple months back. Trying to get gas to the people. Han said. Gas prices are skyrocketing, and it's creating some distension in the city. I want to hijack the tanker trucks, deliver the gas, make some cash too on the side, and be done. He explained. Han was a simple man, Bella mused. He was Asian, Korean, if Bella had to guess. He was always eating something, like chips, or jelly beans, or peanuts. He was lean, tall, but shorter than Dom by just a little bit. Do you have a team? Bella asked. I know some guys in DR that want to help and are good drivers. Dom frowned. We only have Jess, me, and Bella. Jake and Vince split a while back. I think Vince is down in Rio. Bella's phone rang, and she frowned. There's only 2 people who have this number, she muttered, and pulled her phone out and answered the blocked call. Hello. It's me. Brian's voice filled her ear. Bella stood. Brian, what's wrong? Nothing, but I have a job for you. Bella shook her head. I can't. It'll win your freedom, Bella. Bilkins needs you. He's offering a pardon. Bella's eyes met Dom's, her heart rate spiking a little. Brian, I can't. If you're worried about Dom, don't. They're not focused on him. They're focused on a drug trafficker by the name of Arturo Braga. He's a bad dude. His operation stretches over in Miami. I need you here to help me break the operation. We're talking about drugs, Bella. Hard drugs, not marijuana or pills. We're talking heroin. Coke. Bella swallowed. Can I think about this? We have to get moving soon. We don't have a lot of time. All right. Call me back tomorrow, she said and hung up. Dom stood, walking over to her. Baby, what's wrong? Is Brian okay? It took a while for him to forgive Brian. Hell, it took a while for him to forgive Bella. He saw all the sacrifice they both made, and he would be an idiot to throw away Bella or Brian for that matter. Brian's fine. Bilkins has a job he needs me to come do. He's offered me a pardon. Dom nodded. That's good. You should take it. What? No, I can't leave Mexico. I can't go back to the States on a shitty guarantee. What's the job entail? Stopping a drug dealer by the name of Arturo Braga, Bella said. He's moving heavy shit into Miami. I think Brian is in Los Angeles. If Bilkins is there, then he's in Los Angeles. Dom nodded. This is serious. Yes, but she looked at Dom. I can't leave you to go do that. You can. I'm going to head to Dominica Republic. Help Han out with this gas tanker situation. We have the beach house to come back to here in Baja. Finish the job. If you want to come back, you can. I understand if. No, Bella cut him off. Dom, you are my family. You get that? I'm not going to abandon family. Dom nodded. Brian is family too. Bella saw the point. She looked away, looking towards the ocean. Could she do this? I love you, Dom murmured, and then kissed her softly. He brushed a hand up, brushing her hair behind her ear, and looked at her. I love you. Go. Help Brian. Everything will be fine. Bella studied him a few moments. I love you too, she murmured and kissed him. Los Angeles. 2 days later. Bella went to the address that Brian sent her to meet at. She walked in, anticipating the worst. Her eyes landed on Brian's and he instantly went to her and they were hugging tight. You made it. Brian murmured. All right, reunion over. The voice of another man sounded. Can we get some food? I'm hungry. Bella pulled back from Brian and looked at the other man. His ebony skin was perfect, no flaws. He had no facial hair, and his head was bald. He wore a button-up shirt, but the sleeves were ripped off, and his faded jeans had a few tears in them. He wore steel-toed boots to complete the ensemble. Bilkins stood. Thanks for coming, Bella, he said. Bella looked at Bilkins. Pardon, is it in writing? Bilkins held up the envelope with the deal sealed inside. Seriously, I'm hungry. Bella raised a brow. And you are? Roman Pierce. He introduced, smiling wide. He stood offering a hand. Bella shook it. Bella Swan. Oh shit, you're the chick that. Brian looked at Roman. R.O. Come on man. What did I tell you about calling me R.O.? All right. Shut up. Bella said and looked back at Bilkins. Let's get this moving. I have places I need to be other than here, she muttered. Bilkins didn't say anything, just nodded. All right. Your handler is going to be Jasper Whitlock. I trust you can work with each other without killing each other? Bella nodded. I'll try. Good. He's outside with your cars. The object is to get into the race that Braga is holding to find new drug runners. We have an inside man that has been working undercover for a year now. A year? Bella asked. That's a long time. Still no headway on this? No, we still don't know what Braga looks like. All his dealings are behind closed doors, and he apparently only trusts 2 people. Bilkins relayed. Get in, get the evidence we need, so we can make arrests. You complete this mission, it's clean slates for you all, and you can move on with your lives. Bella nodded. Got it. Let's roll, she said and then walked out, Brian and Roman following her. When she saw Jasper, she refrained from going and hugging him. He looked the same, even after half a year. She looked at the 3 cars parked in front of them. Blue one is mine, Bella said instantly, and Jasper tossed her the keys. She walked over to it, admiring the bodywork of the Nissan 370Z. It was a sleek car, the periwinkle blue shimmering slightly as you walked around it. The markings on it were white swirls of tribal designs. The windows were tinted black, where you couldn't see inside. The 2-door coupe was certainly an eye-catcher. She went to the driver's side, sliding in, and looking at all the fancy gadgets. She was impressed with the touchscreens mounted in the car, and she found the NOS switches easy. She smiled, looking at the speedometer, seeing 240 as the max. This car was a beast, and she was willing to bet it had at least a V6 in it. She started it, hitting the button and brake pedal at the same time, and it purred, roaring to life. Brian smiled. She's going to have a field day with that one, he said and turned his attention to the black and silver Subaru WRX. Jasper tossed him the keys, and he went to inspect the car. Roman looked at the bright purple Ford Mustang, with a convertible option. He grinned, getting in the car, and starting it, revving it to life. Jasper shook his head and walked over to Bella's car, and she rolled down the window and looked at him. The cars are hot. You're being tracked everywhere you go. Keep your focus. This is a dangerous mission, so make sure you're watching your back, he said, and then he took something out of his pocket and handed it to her. This phone isn't traceable. If you must call Dom, or the others for any reason, use this one, not the phone Brian called you on. Customs already has it bugged. Bella nodded, taking the phone. Thank you, Jazz. No problem. Steer clear of Mia for now. I know you want to tell her how Dom is doing, but they're still sitting on her house, waiting for Dom to make an appearance. The pardon only extends to you. When you leave LA, you're going to want to go to a country that has no extradition before bouncing back to Mexico. Got it? Bella nodded. Got it. I know better, Jazz, she said lowly. Jasper nodded. All right. Make sure you make your check-ins, so Tanner doesn't blow a fuse, he said and patted her door. Be careful. Bella smiled. Will do, she said, and then he stepped away and watched her pull away, driving away from the safe house, with Brian and Roman behind her. 72 hours later. The Braga party. Bella pulled up, Roman and Brian behind her. Bella got out of her car, and she was dressed to kill. Her shorts were short and bright white, high-waisted, and she wore a strapless electric blue tube top that was tight, showing off her boostiness. She wore boots that laced up and stopped right below knee and had a spike heel, about 4 inches tall, and were black leather. Her long dark hair was down in wavy tumbles towards the center of her back. Her makeup was sharp, a sapphire blue smoky eye, her chocolate eyes popping with the look. Brian and Roman wore simple street clothes, except Roman wore a flashier shirt that was half-buttoned, showing off his glistening chest muscles. A man approached Bella and the others. He was dressed in dark wash jeans, and a plain white t-shirt with a black, silk button-up that was left open. His skin was an even bronze color, and his dark hair was sculpted back on his head, cropped short. His dark eyes were like 2 empty pools of pitch. I'm Jared. Follow me, he said, and Bella glanced to Brian and Roman, before following Jared. They got to a room. There were other people in, standing around, waiting. Another man appeared. He was shorter than Jared, and he was of Mexican descent. His hair was short, and he was wearing a dark button-up shirt, and some dark jeans. I'm Campos. You're here to race for a spot on Braga's racing team. His eyes landed on Bella, taking in her appearance, and he smiled. There are 3 spots on the team. You're going to race for it. There are 6 of you. Best of luck. Jared handed everyone a phone-looking device that had uploaded GPS coordinates. The roads weren't going to be closed either, which would make this race even more challenging. Everyone got to their cars and lined up at the starting line. The GPS counted down for the race to start, and when the flag waved on the screen, everyone peeled out, lurching forward to start the race. Bella shifted gears, pushing her car ahead into second place quickly, with Brian and Roman right behind her. All right, boys, you gotta hang with me, she murmured, and then followed the GPS as the race continued its 5-mile race. When the GPS told her to take the next right, she popped her clutch, ripping her emergency brake, and drifted out into traffic in a smooth drift. In fast, even motions, she put her emergency brake down and shifted again, topping her speed at 100 as she zoomed in and out of traffic, no matter if it was against traffic or with it. The goal was to get on Braga's team. She would get on the team. She overtook first place. As she came up beside them, the guy was younger, spiked frosted-tipped hair, with an out-of-date goatee. He tried to bump Bella, but she avoided the bump, and then he overcorrected and spun out onto a sidewalk. She smirked, shifting gears again, coming up to her next turn, and she drifted it expertly. She looked in her mirror, seeing Brian right behind her, and Roman behind him. That's how it was supposed to be. When they got to the finish, she drifted her car around in a circle and came to a stop, with Brian and Roman right behind her. There were some cheers as people rushed towards Bella's car, and she stepped out. Jared was the first one over. Congrats, you're on the team, he said, his voice even, but he held a smirk. He handed Bella a beeper. Keep it on you. You'll be paged when it's time, he said, and handed Roman and Brian one too. Campos was watching the 3 winners. He was impressed with Bella's abilities. He had files pulled on the 3 racers that won and studied them all. Temporary apartment. Bella, Brian, and Roman made it back to the apartment that the bureau was housing them in. It had 2 bedrooms and a couch, so she opted for the couch, so she didn't have to listen to Roman and Brian fight over it. Where did you learn to drift like that? Brian asked, once they were in the safety of the apartment. Bella smiled, walking to the fridge and grabbing a beer, opening it, and taking a long drink. Girl has to have her secrets, she said, and leaned against the counterbar. Roman was grinning. I have never seen anyone drive like that. Are you sure you were FBI? Used to be, Bella said, and then pulled the phone Jasper gave her from her pocket, and she looked at it, contemplating calling Dom, before she shoved it back in her pocket, deciding against it. What's Dom up to? Brian asked, curious. Bella nodded. Considering this apartment is bugged, that's a conversation I'll have with you later, she said. But he's good, we're good. Roman grabbed a beer for himself and turned and looked at Bella. So, wait, you threw away your entire career for this Dom guy? I did. Bella said, lifting her beer and taking another drink. It's more than that. Dom isn't a bad guy. He was dealt a bad hand is all. Besides, it wasn't just Dom that I did it for. It was for the whole crew. They're a family, and it's incredible to see something that strong. Roman looked at Brian. He's the reason you're not a cop anymore? Brian shook his head. No, I'm not a cop anymore, because of me. Sure, I supported Bella and Dom's decision, but I'm not a cop because I decided to throw in the towel, and back people I knew were in the right. If LAPD couldn't see it, then fuck them. Especially Tanner. Fuck that guy. Bella laughed. Be careful, you'll hurt his feelings, she said and finished her beer. Alright, so, we're waiting around for the beeper to go off, and then we just show up, and run drugs. Or at least that's the idea, right? Yeah. Somehow they're getting the drugs over the border from Mexico, Brian said. Bella frowned. I wonder. She muttered, and then shook her head. Well, I'm exhausted. I'm taking a shower and hitting the hay, she said and pushed away from the counter, and grabbed clothes from a bag, and disappeared into the bathroom to clean off the makeup and to get out of the sexy racing clothes. She's hot. Roman commented, once he heard the water kick on. She is, and very talented, Brian said, taking another drink of his beer. You hit that? Brian raised a brow. If you're asking if Bella and I have slept together, then yes, we have. Multiple times. And she just rode off into the sunset with Dom. She loves him. I love Mia. The only thing keeping me from going over there right now is I don't want to be a revolving door. It's not fair to her. I went to jail and ended up in Miami to get away. If things go south on this mission, I don't want her to get hurt, Brian explained. Yeah, but if you love her, then she needs to know how you feel. Brian shook his head. No, like I said, it's not fair to Mia. She's got a life ahead of her. She shouldn't waste it on someone like me. Roman tilted his beer up, taking a swig. You is stupid then, he said and then finished the rest of his beer. Tell her how you feel, bro, he said and then disappeared into one of the bedrooms to get ready for bed. Brian sighed. He sat there, looking at his beer, deep in thought. He hadn't realized that the water cut off in the bathroom, and then Bella was standing there beside him. Bri. Bella called to him, and then snapped her fingers in his face. Brian blinked a few times. Oh, hey. Dozing off or just deep in thought? Bella asked as she grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge and opened it. She was wearing cotton shorts, and a blue tank top and she was braless. Thinking about Mia. Brian murmured. Bella nodded. I get it, she said and took a drink of the water. Dom hasn't talked to Mia since it happened. He doesn't want to risk her getting in trouble, she said and then motioned for Brian to follow her, and he did, going into the bathroom, and she shut the door. She turned on the faucet and then leaned against the vanity. Dom is in Dominica Republic with Jess, and a few other guys we met in Baja. Brian frowned. Why are you telling me? Because, I want you to know what is going on. If something happens and I don't make it out of this mission, I need you to make it back to Dom. To tell him what happened, Bella said. Nothing is going to happen to you, Brian said. We don't know that. Bella said. Bri, I love Dom, with everything in me. I didn't want to come here. I am supposed to be in DR right now helping them with the job. Brian frowned. What sort of job? Tanker truck job. Listen, it's not what it sounds like. Bella said inside. It's for the community. Oil and gas is being ripped off the citizens there. Han and Dom are taking the gas back for the people. That's it. Brian nodded. All right, and you came here instead. I did. Because you needed me, and Dom convinced me to come do this, for you. Dom doesn't hate me. Bella shook her head. It took him a while to understand and to forgive, but he knows that the sacrifice you made was to help us, and he's over it. He misses his sister, and I think he had hoped you would stick around to keep an eye on her. I'm a screw-up. I didn't want to darken her life with how fucked up I can be. Brian said. Besides, she's going places. You're going to get a clean slate, Bella pointed out. Yeah, if we survive. I know that it seems odd, but I just don't think that Braga is in the business of keeping around the help. Especially since we're dealing drugs, Brian said. Bella was silent a moment. Well, We'll just have to plan for the worst, she said, and Brian agreed. If they were going to survive this, and actually make it out with their clean slates, they needed to be hyper-aware, and be sure to get out of this mission without getting hurt too bad. 1 week later, the beeper went off for Brian, Bella, and Roman as they were playing pool at one of the bars that Brian frequented sometimes when he was undercover previously. They called the number, and Jared answered. "Warehouse off 22nd and Main," Jared said, and then hung up. Bella, Brian, and Roman got in their cars, and they sped towards the location. Once they were there, they were scanned for bugs, which made Bella nervous, but she had inspected the cars inside and out for devices, and even talked to Bilkins about it. She told him that if they were going to make it, there could not be any surveillance, and so they turned the GPS trackers off the cars, so there would be no signal transmitting for Campos and the other men to find. Everyone was cleared, and then loaded up in a semi-trailer, with them in their cars too. This was different, Bella mused. She sat, quietly, listening to the sounds outside the truck, but it was all muffled sounds of the road. They had to be going across the border somehow. Going over the border was easier than coming through it on the way back. Things were stricter. No one cared about anything going to Mexico, they only cared about something bad coming back. Bella closed her eyes, leaning her head against the seat of her car, when her door opened, and Brian slid in. She looked over at him. "What? This isn't weird to you?" "It is, but there's nothing I can do about it. I suggest you sleep while you can, because we'll be running when we make it to Mexico," she said, and then leaned her head against her seat again and shut her eyes. Brian sighed but stayed quiet. Undisclosed location, Mexico, just past the border. Everyone unloaded off the semi-trailer, and they were parked today, waiting for further instructions. When Campos appeared, Bella looked to Brian and gave a slight nod. They had been discussing the whole Braga situation. Campos was the only one that knew who Braga looked like, considering Campos would disappear when a dark sedan pulled up, and the man he sat with was guarded with heavy security, and their meetings were top secret. "All right. Phoenix here is going to lead you through the border using underground tunnels. There is only a 15-minute window for you to get through," Campos said, and then some other men loaded their cars down with the drugs that they were mulling across the border. Bella was silent as she watched the cars get loaded up. Campos disappeared, getting into a hum versus, and they drove off. Bella could assume that he was going across the border the normal way. Jared walked over to Bella. "You're heading into the tunnels at sunset. That's the best time to get through the tunnel," he said, and watched Phoenix get into his car. "They're going to kill all the drivers when you get to the other side of the tunnel," he warned before turning and walked back towards his own car, and got in. Bella looked at Brian. They were right. They knew that Braga wouldn't take the chance on leaving any witnesses that could tie drugs back to him. He just needed them, and they were all disposable. Everyone got in their cars, and Bella blew out a breath, and pulled her phone out of her pocket that Jasper gave her. She looked at it a moment, knowing that Phoenix was watching them for any movements, so she just dialed Dom, and put it on speakerphone. It rang a few times, before Dom picked up, his voice hesitant. "Dom," Bella said softly, keeping her eyes forward. "Bella," Dom's voice sounded relieved to hear hers. "Listen, I don't have a lot of time. I'm about to do some crazy shit, and I just wanted to tell you I love you. If I don't make it back to Baja, it's not because I stayed in LA or anything. I so badly rather be in Baja right now on our beach, but... Baby, what's going on? I'm running drugs across the border for a guy named Arturo Braga with Brian and a dude named Roman Pierce. Braga plans on killing all the drivers once we're across." Bella spoke quickly. "Fuck Bella, you should have called me sooner. I could have. No, you're still wanted. I'm doing this to help Brian get his clean slate. We have a plan. We just can't fuck anything up, but in the event we do, I love you. If I don't make it back, remember how much I loved you." "I gotta go, Dom," Bella said, and then she hung up before he could say anything else. She closed her eyes and blew out a shaky breath. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel, and she waited for the sun to fall in the sky, and when it did, Phoenix revved up his engine, and then the run began. They sped across the hot sands of Mexico towards the ravine wall that was housing the tunnel that went underground into the States. She was right behind Phoenix, with Brian and Roman behind her and the other 3 drivers, and then Jared was taking up the rear in his own car. They had to stay tight, nearly bumper to avoid getting seen on the cameras that scanned this part of the wall. When they got near, the tunnel opening lifted and they drove into the tunnels, the turns a little windy and tight, but they pressed forward, continuing to push everything they had to get through to the other side. They have 8 minutes left to get to the other side and in the clear. Bella's heart slammed in her chest as they raced through the tunnels that left a lot to chance. All it took was a side swipe into the walls to cave something in. Phoenix drove the tunnels like an expert, which told Bella that they had done this before, which meant that was why Braga was always looking for more drivers. Time ticked by, and finally, the opening of the tunnel was ahead, and they sped out, hitting the dark sands of Southern California, and they were in the clear, lining up in a private area of the desert. Campos men transferred the drugs into the verses while everyone sat in their cars. Bella swallowed, pocketing her phone, and then unscrewed her NOS nozzles in her car, carefully, and then ignited the cigarette lighter, before getting out of her car, and going to stand next to Brian, who nodded to her. Campos smiled, looking at the 6 drivers in front of him. Good job. You kept it tight, and you succeeded. Unfortunately, I don't have any more use for you so. He had his men raise their guns, and the other 3 drivers looked panicked. But Campos' men didn't have a chance to take anyone out, when Bella and Brian's cars exploded, taking out the other cars with it. It gave Bella and Brian enough time to disarm 2 of the men, and they shot towards Campos and the other men, tagging 3 of the guys, but Phoenix and Campos got in the car with Jared, and Jared looked at Bella before peeling out of there. Bella felt the sting in her side, and realized that she was hit in her side, but she ignored it. Get in the Humvee, let's go, she said, calling to Brian and Roman. The other 3 drivers were killed in the shooting, and she felt bad for them, but they had to get out of there before Border Patrol made it there. The drugs were with them in the Humvee, and that was the best upper hand situation they could have gotten. Brian pulled his phone out, calling into Bilkins while they drove. Bilkins, we have the drugs and the HUM versus Braga was going to have his men kill all of us, but well. You blew up the cars in the desert. Bilkins said and cursed. All right, bring the drugs in. Bella snatched the phone from Brian. She could hear Bilkins' voice even with Brian having the phone up to his ear. No, we need to get to Campos. He's going to come straight for the drugs, and us. We have to play the upper hand here. If we want to draw Braga out, then we do an exchange. Then you can take down Braga for good and stop the whole drug operation. Way too dangerous, Bella. Bye. Bella said and hung up the phone and tossed the phone to Brian. We're stashing the drugs. Arrange a meet with Campos. Roman looked at Bella shocked. Did you just hang up on the FBI director? I don't fucking care. Bella said. Call Jazz. Tell him what we know. Her side hurt like a bitch, and she reached a hand over her side, and lifted it to look at it. The crimson blood was dark with low lighting, but it was a lot. Shit, Bella, you're hit. Brian said. Pull the fuck over. Bella shook her head. We don't have time, she said, as she continued to drive. You're going to bleed out, and then what? Pull over, let me drive. Brian commanded, his voice stern. Bella didn't look at him, just continued to drive. Call Jazz, she said simply and pressed the versus faster. Bella's apartment. Brian stumbled into Bella's apartment, half carrying Bella, with Roman helping from the other side. Jasper was there at the apartment waiting. Put her on the dining table, Jasper said, and Roman and Brian went towards the small dining room and then placed Bella on the table. She groaned. Fuck, Brian, easy. She looked over at Jasper. It's just a graze. Jasper ripped her shirt off, leaving her in her bra, and he looked at her side. More than a graze, darling, he said and looked at Brian. Get the tequila. Brian moved into the kitchen, opening the cabinet where they stashed the liquor and grabbed the tequila and brought it to Jasper and handed it to him. Roman was moving to grab towels and other first aid he could find in the apartment. It's gonna burn, Jasper warned, and poured the tequila over her side, and she grit her teeth, clenching them tight as the pain radiated through her. Jasper rolled her slightly. It went straight through, he said. Good. He grabbed the towels that Roman handed him, and he put one under her on the exit wound, and then covered the entry wound with the other towel. Okay. Down in my car. I have a first aid bag, with a suturing kit I took from the hospital. Just fucking cauterize it, Bella said. Blowtorch, under the sink. You're insane. Jasper said. I just poured a shit ton of tequila on you. Wash it off. Jasper, if you don't fucking do it, I will. Bella said. We have to make a meet with Campos and Braga, she said, trying to lean up off the table. Jasper pushed her back on the table. Fuck. He looked at Brian. Get the blowtorch, he said, and Brian hesitated, but went and got the blowtorch. Get water, Jasper said, and Brian complied, and Roman was staring in shock as Jasper poured water over the wound, rinsing it out. Blood was still oozing out. He then unhooked her pants, pulling them off because they were soaked with tequila, and he wasn't trying to set her on fire. Hold her down. Brian, give her your wallet to bite down on. Brian took his wallet out of his back pocket and Bella took it, biting down on it, and then Brian put his hands on her shoulders and held her to the table. R.O. Roman blinked a few times. What? Hold her legs. Jasper said, quickly, and then clicked on the blowtorch. He looked at Bella. I'm going to fucking kill you for making me do this. Jasper grumbled, and then he blew out a breath. All right, he said, and then moved the towel away, and then the heat of the torch kissed the wound, and she bit into the wallet, screaming into it as the flames blistered the wound, sealing the capillaries and stopping the bleeding. Jasper pulled the torch back, flicking it off. All right, I have to turn her. Other side, he said, and Bella relaxed, her side killing her from the pain, but she could handle this. They helped turn her, and she closed her eyes, biting down on the wallet, while Jasper used the torch on the exit wound. When he was done, they released her, and she grabbed the wallet from her mouth, tossing it at Brian. She was breathing heavily. She lay there a moment, before summoning up her energy and sitting up, Brian's hands helping her up. All right. Let me get change. Jared should be contacting a me point, Bella said, as she got to her feet. The pain in her side was a searing pain. Bella, you should stay here, and Jasper started. I'm finishing this, Bella said, looking at Jasper. I'm finishing this. I'm okay. It's a fucking gunshot, not like it hit anything vital, she said, and then walked over to the living room and grabbed clothes from her bag. She pulled on a shirt, and then slipped on jeans, fastening them, and turned and looked at the three men in the dining room area, just staring at her in shock. She ignored them and moved into the kitchen, and grabbed a beer from the fridge, and opened it, taking a long drink from it. Braga meet point. The next day, Bella felt the exhaustion rolling over her, from losing blood from her gunshot, and putting her body through a lot of traumas, but she was pushing herself to keep going. Shen needed to see this to the end. Tanner was pissed that this was going on. Bilkins was trying to keep Tanner under wraps, but Tanner was getting antsy. He didn't want to lose the shot at taking Braga down. When Campos got there, with Jared and Phoenix, Bella watched how they moved, and how they interacted. I don't like getting shot at, Bella said, her voice strong, despite how tired she felt. You've made your point, Campos said. Have I? It's just bad business. Where's Braga? He's coming, Campos replied. Where's the drugs? Bella looked at Roman and Brian, who pulled the trunk of drugs out of the HUMV. This is half of it. The other half, we will give you the GPS coordinates to once we get our money and walk away. Campos nodded, and then looked to Phoenix, giving him a nod. He put a phone up to his ear and gave the signal for another dark sedan to pull around. It stopped, and the dark-tinted door swung open, and an older man got out. He was dressed in a nice pinstriped suit, his shoes Italian and expensive. He walked out, standing in front of Campos, Phoenix, and Jared. He looked at Bella, Brian, and Roman. Very impressive. The man, that called himself Braga, stood there, looking at Bella. He had his men bring forward 6 bags with cash in them. It was supposed to be $500,000. Bella tilted her head, studying him. His step was off, his body language a little nervous. He may look the part of a drug lord extraordinaire, but Bella knew that this wasn't Braga. The bags loaded in the Humvee, and the chest with the drugs in it shifted to the other side of the room. The way Campos stood, open, and his body language, told her that he was the one calling the shots, and she was certain, now without a doubt, that Campos was in fact Braga this entire time. This older gentleman with graying hair and beard was just the decoy. Just then SWAT descended upon the place, going towards the decoy. Fucking Tanner. Bella cursed. Wrong target. She yelled and took a gun from the back of her pants, and then took chase after Campos, while Brian went after Phoenix. Jared stayed where he was, pulling his gun and pointing it at some of Campo's other men. Bella's side screamed at her as she ran, full out sprinted after Campos, who she knew was Braga. He was amazingly fast, but she didn't let that discourage her. He went into a building, and Bella followed, her gun still drawn, as she chased him up the stairs. Now they were on the roof, and he was sprinting towards the edge, and leaping over to the other building. The heat of the sun made them sweat, but Bella didn't care. She sprinted, leaping to the other building, rolling when she hit the other roof, and kept running. Her FBI training would never leave her, and she continued to chase him hard. The buildings were stair-stepped, getting lower to the ground with each building, until he jumped off the side of one building, and landed on a car roof, and then took off down the street. Bella followed suit, landing and rolling, her feet hitting the pavement, and she kept chasing. When he opened fire on her, she ducked behind a dumpster, and then fired back, hearing his feet slamming the ground as he ran again. She chased after him, her lungs burning from the overexertion, and her side continued to beg her to stop the chase, but she couldn't let him get away now. She saw him rip someone out of their car and get in and trying to drive into traffic. Bella stopped, took aim, and shot the tires out in the back, and then ran towards the car, as he fishtail-ed, trying to continue his escape. He aimed the car at her, and floored it, going towards her. Bella fired into the car, the bullets piercing the windshield with each shot. She hit him in the chest, but it didn't kill him instantly. His foot got heavy on the gas, and Bella cursed, firing again, until the clip was empty. She jumped, her feet hitting the hood of the car, and she rolled into the windshield, the glass giving under her weight. She groaned as the glass cut up her leg, but she saw Braga try to reach for the gun in his last attempt to do something, but she kicked her foot out, and a shard of the windshield lodged itself into Braga's throat. In all the commotion, the car rammed into the brick wall of the building, and she barely managed to pull her foot back when the airbags deployed, and the horn sounded its long continuous noise, alerting everyone that there was an accident. Bella lay on her back on the hood of the car, and just stared at the sky. The empty gray blue stared back at her, and the sun's heat continued to shoot her with its rays. Her lungs were still burning from her adventurous run, and her side was biting her painfully, and her leg was now screaming at her from being cut up from the impact of the windshield. But she lay there, trying to get her breathing under control, as she heard people talk around her. People were probably filming, or taking pictures, or whatever they were doing, but she didn't care. Braga was dead, and the mission was over. That's what mattered. Bella. Jasper's voice yelled out to her, and she heard the car door slam, and then the heavy steps of a few different people. The sky is so blue today, Bella murmured, as Jasper got to the car, and was looking at her. What? The sky? Bella nodded, looking up at the sky. Jasper pushed a hand through his long hair. Can you walk? Nope. Bella said. Fucked my leg up, she said, and then struggled to sit up, but Jasper's hand grasped hers and pulled her into a sitting position. She saw flashing lights of the ambulance and other police cars. Bilkins was there, checking Braga's pulse, and shook his head before looking at Bella. You're fucking crazy. Well, he was going to get away, she said, and blew out a breath. Where's Brian and Roman? They're okay, Jasper said, and EMTs were making their way over to Bella. Bella nodded to the EMT. Not going to the hospital. I just want you to take the glass out of. Go to the fucking hospital, Jasper said. No, he said when she started to protest. For once, listen to me, he said, his eyes tired. Bella sighed and nodded, looking at the EMT. It's just my leg, she said, and let the EMTs help her off the car and onto a stretcher. There were a few civilians that were standing by when it all happened, and they did film it. The video had been uploaded to every news site, of the badass woman who got hit by a car, after shooting at the guy, who was hijacking the car from a civilian. The video showed her shooting into the car, and then getting hit by the car, and kicking windshield glass into Braga's throat. The whole video just seemed epic, and Bilkins and Tanner even watched it a few times. 3 days later, Bella was finally released from the hospital, her leg bandaged up from the accident. Her arm was in a sling. She hadn't realized that she dislocated it when she fell on the hood of the car hard. She got to the apartment to pack her things when Jasper was there, waiting for her along with Brian and Roman. I'm heading out. It's been real and fun, Bella said as she moved around the apartment, grabbing her bag and throwing some of her stuff in it. We're going with you, Brian said, his hands in his pocket. Bella raised a brow. No offense, but I don't think that's a good idea. From the corner of her eye, she caught movement, and looked over at Mia. She was pregnant from the looks of it. Mia, Bella murmured. You're? Mia nodded. I didn't tell Brian until now. I'm due in a couple months, and I just want to be with family. I don't want to be stuck here by myself anymore. Bella looked at Jasper. Are you here to make sure that I leave? No, darling, I'm here to help you get back without it being traced to Dom, Jasper said. Don't worry. Apartment isn't bugged anymore, he said. Listen, what you did with Braga. That was unbelievably stupid. You're not an agent anymore, yet you worked the case like you were. Braga would only bring more drugs to the community if he had gotten away. Then the whole operation would have been for nothing, Bella said. Roman nodded. That may be true, but you got shot and hit by a car. I don't think I've ever met a woman as tough as you. Hell, I haven't met anyone as tough as you. I know I got a clean slate and everything, but man, I'm just sick of this place. California is a drag. I've always wanted to travel. Bella looked at Brian. All right. Well, since the place isn't bugged anymore, she said, split the cash. Jasper frowned. What cash? The cash from the drop. FBI only took 3 of the bags of cash. Bella said. Other 3, stashed away. Jasper smirked. You're something else. Bella shrugged. Hey, I ran drugs from Mexico, and like R.O. said, I got shot and hit by a car. I'm taking something from this. She said and then smiled a little. All right. You guys can come, but I'm not your keeper. Don't fuck things up, she said and looked to Jasper. You got us a way out? Jasper nodded. I do. We're traveling to Montenegro. From there I've chartered a private plane back to Mexico. He explained. My advice, leave Mexico before Bilkins zones in on where Dom is. Dom is still a wanted fugitive. They consider him dangerous too, because of the aftermath with Tran. We shot Tran, Brian said, motioning between him and Bella. I know. But Tanner refuses to believe that. Get to a country with no extradition. You'll be safer that way, Jasper said. For now, let's go. Gather your things. We'll get you 4 out of the country and on your way to Montenegro, he said and looked at his watch. Flight leaves in 2 hours. 1 week later. Baja, Mexico. Bella looked at the beach house that sat beautifully by the water. Her shoulder was still in a sling from her dislocation, but it was getting better as each day passed. She walked up the 3 steps onto the deck, and walked up to the door, punching in a code on the keypad. Brian carried Mia's bags, along with his, and Roman was looking around at the water, and the reclusiveness of the beach house. Bella opened the door and walked inside, flipping on a light. She tossed her duffel on the couch, and looked around, taking a deep breath in. She missed the salty air of the beach and the house. This is super nice, Roman complimented as he walked in, setting his bag on the floor. Well, it's been home for 6 months, Bella said, and then walked through to the kitchen, pulling out whiskey glasses and pouring her, Roman, and Brian a drink. They all drank together, listening to the repetitive crash of the waves against the shore. There was a hum of an engine as it pulled up, and Bella smiled, leaving the kitchen and walking out on the back deck. She saw the old Dodge Charger that Dom worked on while here in Baja. When he got out of the car, she sucked in a breath, her heart hammering in her chest, as it leapt for joy to see him again. Dom rushed to her in even strides, his arms coming around her, lifting her and twirling her around. His mouth crushed against hers, kissing her passionately. After your call, I was going crazy. I didn't know what had happened, and then I saw the news, the video of you rolling onto that car, shooting at that guy. Baby, I've never been more scared in my life. Bella smiled and kissed him softly. I know, and I'm sorry, so much happened so fast. Dom took in her appearance. Her shoulder in a sling. You're hurt. Yeah. Hurt some other places too. I got shot in my side, and I fucked my leg up kicking in the windshield of the car, Bella explained. You were shot. Dom murmured, and his hands moved over her shirt, lifting it to look at her side. It was bandaged now, but he frowned. Baby. I'm okay. Bella said with a nod. I'm more than okay now that I'm here with you. She murmured and leaned up and kissed him again. Brian walked out onto the deck. Are you going to stand out here and kiss all day, or are you going to come in for a drink? He called to Dom, a wide smile on his face. Dom looked up from Bella and saw Brian. He moved to hug Brian tight, his arms nearly crushing. You kept her alive? Well, I did my best, but you know, Brian said with a smile, after their hug was over. Mia appeared in the doorway, her hand caressing her swollen belly. Dom. Dom looked to Mia, his mouth dropping open slightly. Mia, he said, his voice strained. He had missed his baby sister, and she was so beautiful. She was pregnant, and it made tears come to his eyes, but he moved to her, hugging her gently, kissing her temple. You came. You shouldn't have. I want to be with family, especially now, Mia said, misty-eyed. Dom smiled, kissing her temple again. I've missed you. I missed you too, Mia said. Bella smiled, and then looked at Roman, who wandered over. Dom, this is Roman Pierce. He's one of the guys that helped with the mission. Dom moved from Mia, and went and shook Roman's hand, doing a little bro hug at the same time. Welcome to Baja. Where's Jess? Bella asked. Him and Han are shopping. We just got back today, literally, Dom said. Bella nodded. When they get here, we need to talk about changing locations. Bilkins is still hunting you, and Jazz said that we need to leave Mexico. Dom nodded. I figured. We've spent too much time here already. Well, hiding out in any country is still risky, regardless of extradition, Brian said. We bounced in from Montenegro, but how many of us know how to speak the native languages? Places like Cuba, Venezuela, and some places in Brazil have extradition treaties, but they usually don't extradite, he explained. Smaller towns run the risk of being found easier, and bigger populous countries and towns, you can blend in easier. Bella said. Vince is over in Rio, right? She asked, looking at Dom. He is. Rio is just small and big enough to maybe go unnoticed, and it's easy to become a citizen, and Brazil's extradition doesn't allow for Brazilian citizens to be extradited, Dom said. Bella and Brian looked at each other and nodded. All right. Rio it is. Rio. 2 years later. The city was different, but nothing far from what they were used to in Mexico. The ocean was beautiful, the waters so crystal blue like Baja had been. Becoming a Brazilian citizen hadn't been hard, and they lived peacefully, just enjoying life. They had money still, from Bella's inheritance still, but also the money that Brian and Roman managed to swipe before the FBI took over. They walked away with $100 grand each from the bags they snagged, which was enough to live in Rio, comfortably. Mia gave birth to a boy, a beautiful combination of Brian and Mia, and they were complete, a happy family. Roman traveled a lot, seeing other countries, but always coming back home to Rio. Han traveled away to Tokyo but popped in for some family dinners that was planned. Jesse stayed there in Rio with Dom and Bella, living in the house they bought off the beach. Something about the water just seemed so calm and peaceful. The sun was going down, and when the sun went down, it was the most beautiful sight, seeing the orange glow of the sun reflect in the water. Dom came out on the small deck that was off their bedroom. His arms entwined around her from behind, and his mouth kissed Bella's neck. Come to bed, he murmured. Bella smiled, leaning against Dom. The feel of his hands was nice on her body. The sun is setting, she said, watching the sun slowly disappear. Dom hugged her against him, looking out on the water and the dying sun. It's beautiful, but you're better to look at, he said, and turned her in his arms to look at her. Her hair was at her shoulders now, and the wave was gentle, creasing her hair perfectly. Her dark eyes still held so much wonder, so much love. His mouth covered hers, and he led her back into their bedroom, where he lay her on the bed, stripping her of her clothes. She lay there gloriously naked, all for him. His mouth ravaged her, sending sharp thrills through her as his mouth pleasured her expertly. His tongue wound in circles over her swollen clit. She was mesmerized by the passion, arching her body to his mouth, her hips driving up as the tension gathered in the center of her belly. Her hands clenched in the silk sheets of the bed, and she moaned as the tight ropes that held back her orgasm gave way, shredding and pushing forward the pleasure that radiated from her and to him. His mouth drank her in, her moans filling his ears, sending shivers through him. He leaned up, hooking her legs over his shoulders, as he pushed his hard, throbbing cock into her swollen center, filling her up completely. He thrust into her slow and deep, each stride pushing her button, repeatedly, pushing her to spill over again and again. Her body quaked under him, as he sent her spiraling, the carnality of their union, satisfying every desire. He started plunging faster, a little harder, as he felt himself swell up tight inside her with no more room to grow. His cock leaped with anticipation, waiting to burst open, but he continued to hold his control, long enough to feel her tighten around him again, her orgasm rushing over his tip, saturating him. He plunged deep inside her, his tip hitting her core, and the explosion of his hot seed layered her inside, emptying completely. He leaned down, letting her legs fall to the mattress, and his mouth kissed hers, his tongue probing her mouth, tasting her tongue, and dancing with her. He shifted, pulling out, dripping wet, before wrapping himself up with her in the sheets, her head laying on his bare chest. They were both satisfied completely, and every time they were united like this, it was always so magical. "I love you," she murmured, hearing the calming of his heart after laying there in silence for a while. "I love you too," he said, kissing the top of her head. They relaxed against each other in the sheets, and then they were falling asleep together. 3 days later, "It's just a quick easy job," Vince said, as he sat on the stool at the bar in the kitchen of Bella and Dom's house. Bella popped a chip in her mouth. "Quick easy job? It's going to require a lot more than just me, Jess, and Dom." "Yeah, but I have a couple other guys that are helping. We just need 2 people on the train, and then 4 of us on the outside. We have to get to the train car that is housing the cars. It's a snag and grab. Easy peasy. We drop the cars and pick up our cash. Should go undetected considering how far back the train cars with the cars are in," Vince explained. Bella ate another chip. "All right. So, maybe Brian can get on the train with me. We hop the train car with the cars, and then you and Dom and whatever idiots you're bringing for this gig, can bring the rig around. We snap the cars to the rig and drive out of there. There's 3 cars?" "Yeah," Vince said with a nod. "What will I do?" Jessie asked. Bella looked at Jessie. Security on the train. We need access to the other train cars. Think you can swing it?" Dom shook his head. "I don't know. It's not like we need the money, babe." "Yeah, but some of us do," Vince said. "My wife just had our kid. Not all of us are living like kings over here. I've offered more than once to, and I'm saying that I need to do this job," Vince said. "What happened to family?" Dom was quiet. He looked at Bella, feeling slightly uneasy about the whole thing. Bella raised a brow at Dom. "It's just one job. It's not harder than the tanker trucks." Dom sighed. "All right. We'll do it," he said. "Call Bry," he said, and then lifted his beer and took a long drink. Vince smiled. "Thanks man, seriously." 1 week later, Bella and Brian sat on the train, waiting for Jessie to give them the go-ahead. They were pretending to read a couple magazines, while they waited. When Bella's phone vibrated, she looked at it and nodded to Brian. They got up and walked towards the back of the train car. There were bathrooms on the train, so it didn't look too odd. When they made it to the train car, housing the cars, Bella entered in a code, and the keypad lit up green, and the door slid open. Bella and Brian moved around the train car and looked at the 3 cars. One car was older, but was restored, a 1966 Chevy Corvette, Stingray, a metallic silver color. Another car was a 1965 Ford GT40, and was a metallic blue, with white racing stripes down the middle. The third car was a black, newer Ford Mustang, late 90s, and had been restored like the other 2. There were keys for the vehicles on a panel in the train car, and Brian moved to look at the keys. Bella. "What?" Bella said, looking up from the GT40. "These are DIA tags," Brian said, holding up the keys. Bella sighed. "That's great," she muttered, and then there was a loud bang on the side of the train car, and then the side was cut out perfectly so the cars could be lifted to the rig that was driving alongside the train expertly. Dom was there, Vince with him, and another guy that Bella knew was named ZZ. Vince got in the black Mustang, Brian tossing him the keys for it, and he started it. He positioned the car, and then ZZ slung the hook, snagging the car from the undercarriage, and then it ripped the car from the train car. The ramp on the rig lowered, and Vince lowered the Mustang to the ground, driving the Mustang off, towards the drop point for the cars. ZZ started to get in the GT40, but Dom stopped him. "Ladies first," Dom said, looking at Bella. Zizi hesitated, but nodded and Bella climbed into the GT40 and positioned it. Dom walked over and leaned in, kissing her softly. "Don't go to the drop. Take it somewhere safe," he murmured lowly in her ear. "Love you too," Bella said with a smile, and then she waited, the hook springing her over onto the rig, and back down the ramp like Vince had. Zizi watched her turn and head away from the drop. "Where's she going?" Dom looked at Zizi, and then a fight started. Zizi threw himself at Dom, throwing a few punches, while Dom avoided them. When the three guys in the rig noticed there was a fight, two of them came to help Zizi, and Brian took to defending Dom, fighting back, and ending up on the rig, fighting with one of the guys after throwing one of them off the train. The rig bounced against the train, and the metal grinded together loudly. It drew the attention of DIA agents that were on the train, and they came to investigate. When the door opened, Zizi managed to get his gun loose, intending to shoot Dom, but shot the DIA agents instead. Meanwhile, Brian struggled with the driver of the rig, trying to gain control of the rig for himself, when the rig circled around, lodging itself in the train car in front of the one Dom was in. "Fuck," Brian cursed, getting out of the rig, and trying to scramble onto the back from the driver's seat, seeing how gas was pouring out of the rig, and they were headed for the bridge. Suddenly Dom flung the Stingray out of the train car, and raced alongside the train, to help Brian get off the rig before it collided with the bridge. Brian jumped onto the car right before the crash, but the car was being propelled over the cliff into the water below. "Shit." Dom cursed, and stood as they fell, letting the car break the water under them, before him and Brian sunk into the water too. They swam as hard as they could from the car to avoid being sucked down into the deeper waters. Undisclosed location. Bella waited for what seemed like forever. The garage was one of the garages that her and Dom purchased to house two of the cars they were building on together. It was the only place she could think of. She didn't know why Dom suddenly wanted her to take this car somewhere safe. Maybe he saw or heard something that she didn't know about. Jessie pulled up, getting out and walking over to her. "Where's Dom and Brian?" "Not here yet," Bella said, brushing a hand through her hair. Her stomach lurched, and she felt the nausea roll over her, and she stepped away from Jessie to throw up into a metal trash can. "Bells, you okay?" Jessie asked, concerned. Bella wasn't okay. Dom wasn't there and it worried her. "Yeah." When another car pulled up and parked, she turned to see Dom and Brian getting out. Relief washed through her. Dom went to her, hugging her tight. "I'm okay." "You're soaking wet," Bella murmured, leaning back and looking at him. "Long story," Dom said and looked at the GT40, moving away from Bella. He inspected it. "Something about this car. Zizi was more interested in this car, and I think that it's worth more than what Vince said the payout was on it. Zizi was prepared to let us die too, as long as he got this car." Bella frowned. "The car is empty. No drugs are in this car, at all. Dia seized the cars, what could they possibly need from it?" Brian shook his head. "I don't know, but whatever it is, has to be in the car somewhere." "Take it apart," Dom said. "Strip it down, we'll figure out what they wanted from it." Jess's phone dinged and he pulled it out. "Oh shit. Guys. Did you kill DIA agents on the train?" Bella looked at Dom and Brian. "You guys what?" "It wasn't us. It was Zizi," Dom said. "He shot them trying to shoot me," he said and sighed. "Shit. That just sent up a red flag that we are here," Brian said. "Yeah, we still can't be extradited legally, but," Bella said, "now that they think we've just murdered DIA agents, they're not going to do this the legal way." "Well, let's get to work then," Dom said, looking back at the car. "Take her apart." 2 days later. 2 days was all it took for them to disassemble the GT40. It all came down to the chip in the car. Dom studied the chip, the tiny chip that held all the information they needed. In 2 days, Jessie managed to uncover that Zizi worked for a guy by the name of Hernan Reyes. He was an extremely wealthy man. Bella and Dom knew who he was. They never crossed paths with the man, because they typically kept to themselves. From their understanding, Reyes owned most of Rio, or at least enough people feared him. The cars were his that the DIA seized. They were trying to take out a drug operation that Reyes was clearly a part of. The chip gave them locations to other locations on where Reyes kept his money. Reyes was a careful man, amassing his fortune, and keeping it all in cash, so the DEA couldn't track him. It was smart, and it made sense. Vince walked in, seeing the car in pieces. After a couple days, Dom finally told Vince what was going on, and so Vince showed up. What the hell happened? Dom nodded to the car. This car, worth $100 million. What? Bella nodded. Yeah, the location to all of Rye's hideaways for where he stores his cash is all in that chip. So, there are DSS agents looking for you guys after the train heist. This was supposed to be an easy in and out, Vince said. Dom nodded. Right, so ZZ didn't plan on killing us after?
No. Is that why he brought a gun? Brian asked. Him and his croons. He said and looked at the disassembled car. Vince, you can't be that stupid.
Vince shook his head. I'm not, it's just unreal. He said and sighed. All right, now what? He glanced at his watch. Now, we figure out where to go from here, Bella said, and then stood, going through a door in the garage to where the bathroom was.
She threw up again, feeling a little clammy. She had been steadily having nausea and sickness like this, and after Googling her symptoms yesterday, she concluded that she might be pregnant.
She wasn't sure what to say or even do, so she did the same thing, and bought one of those cheap pregnancy tests at one of the markets there. She took it this morning, and it confirmed her suspicion. Now she just had to figure out how to tell Dom. Her period wasn't late, so it was throwing her a little. She had the birth control implant in her arm still, and this shouldn't even be happening, but it was. When she returned to the others, she had rinsed out her mouth and splashed some water on her face to alleviate some of the flushness she felt. Brian and Dom were looking over the car. Jessie was using the laptop to look at something, but she noticed Vince being shady. What are you doing? Bella asked, as Vince pulled his hand away from where the chip sat on the toolbox. Dom and Brian turned their attention to Vince, and Dom frowned. What are you doing, Vince? Vince swallowed. It's a lot of money, he murmured. Dom shook his head. Get out. He roared at him. How dare you? This is a family. He yelled at Vince, and Vince hesitated, his eyes meeting Bella's apologetically, and he turned and walked away. I can't believe him, Dom said and kicked tire that sat on the frame of the car. Guys, we have company, Jessie said, looking at the laptop screen. When it alerted him one of the cameras had triggered, he saw ZZ and his men storming the garage. He fucking told them our location. Brian cursed, and then they were scrambling. Bella grabbed the chip, pocketing it, and they took off on foot, seeing how the only exit for driving away was blocked. Brian and Bella leapt off on a roof and sprinted, Dom and Jessie behind them. Bella's heart thundered in her chest as they maneuvered across the rooftops. Some of Reyes and ZZ's men tried cutting them off, opening fire on them, and Bella and Brian ducked for cover, avoiding a hailstorm of bullets. They changed directions, finding a fire escape and barreling down it into an apartment, startling an older woman, but they moved, going to the front door. Dom and Jessie vaulted onto another roof, getting separated from Bella and Brian, but they were running for their lives right now. More bullets kissed the brick of the building that Dom and Jessie were on, but Dom pulled Jessie out of the way, pinning him against the wall, in the blind corner that they were using. Jess, they're after me. You can slip away without. Just then more bullets, and he watched as Jess's body jerked with the impact of the bullets. Dom felt like everything was moving in slow motion. Jessie crumpled to the ground, and the Dom moved fast, pulling Jessie with him to a safer spot, using the stairwell access to shield them from more gunfire. Jessie, look at me, man. Come on, don't do this, he said, his hands moving over the crimson stains on Jess's shirt. Jessie looked up at Dom, his mouth filling with blood, and he coughed, blood spurting up, coating Dom's white tank top. Go, he gurgled. I'm not leaving you. Go. Jessie managed again before his chest stopped moving, and his eyes stared off. Fuck. No, Jessie, Dom said, and then looked at the door. He heard footsteps, and he cursed again, having to abandon Jessie and continue running. He had to get to Bella, he just had to get to her. He ran, his life depending on it. He kept running, pushing through a door into an alley, and seeing a cop. Freeze. The woman called, her gun raised on Dom. Dom heard more gunfire, and then he moved, pulling the woman cop out of the way, pinning her to the wall as bullets sailed past them. The woman stared at Dom, wide-eyed, before he moved, rushing away from her and dipping into another ally. The woman recovered, staring around her, before she heard more gunfire, and she took cover, but it was Agent Luke Hobbs, the DSS agent that was sent here to bring in Dominic Toretto, who she just let escape. "Are you okay?" Hobbs asked her. He was tall, bronze, and muscles. His hair was cropped short, and his eyes were like two pieces of coal, and his face sported a goatee. "Nevis," he snapped.
She blinked a few times. "Yes, I'm okay." She managed and looked around her. "I had him and he."
"Who? Toretto?" "Yes, he saved me from those men, and then he just ran off," she murmured. Hobbs sighed. "All right, let's get back to the station. Recuperate, and figure out next strat," he said, and they moved together towards one of the armored vehicles that they rode in on. Bella and Dom's beach house. Bella and Brian made it to the beach house. Not many people knew the location, and Bella had a feeling that Vince might have given them up, but so far, there were no one prowling around. Her lungs burned from her sprinting and leaping. Brian called Mia, checking on her and Jack, to make sure they went to the safe house that they had put aside just in case anything ever went south. "Mia, are you and Jack okay?" "We are. We're safe. Are you all meeting here?" "We will when Dom and Jesse get here. We got separated," Brian said, his breathing calming down finally. Bella felt sick, so she went to the bathroom, shutting the door behind her, and then hunched over the toilet, throwing up. She groaned, feeling the sweat pour off her instantly as she emptied her already empty stomach. She hoped it was a good sign that the baby was okay. She cleaned up in the bathroom before joining Brian. Brian was in the kitchen. He pulled out 2 beers and handed one to Bella. "Actually water, after that run," Bella said and moved to the fridge, putting the beer back and grabbed the water, and opened it. She drank it down fast, the cool water, quenching her thirst. 10 minutes later, Dom walked in the house. He was covered in blood, and he was panting. "Dom." Bella flew to him, her hands examining him. "It's not my blood." Dom croaked. "Bella," he said, when her hands shook, "it's not my blood." His dark eyes looked at hers. "Where's Jess?" Dom shook his head. He didn't make it." Bella closed her eyes, feeling the sting, but she pushed them back. "Okay. We need to get to Mia, and the safe house. We need to figure out what to do next," she said and opened her eyes and looked at Dom. She could see the pain in his eyes. See how much it hurt to lose Jesse. He was like a little brother to them both, family that couldn't be replaced. Safe house. 12 hours later. Mia laid Jack down to nap and joined the others in the living room. Dom changed his clothes, not wanting to sit with Jess's blood on him, and she didn't blame him. "Reyes has men out looking for all of us," Brian said. Dom was quiet, his arms crossed as he leaned against the wall, thinking. "Dom," Bella said gently. Dom looked up, glancing around the room. "We're going to need a team. We're going to take everything Reyes has. He took from us. Our family. He doesn't deserve to have what he has," he said. Brian frowned. "What are you saying?" "We're going to use the chip and we're going to take all $100 million of Reyes money and we're going to disappear for good." 72 hours later. Secondary garage, safe house location. Roman looked around at the empty space that he was instructed to come to. He set down his bag and looked around. The message had been cryptic enough for him to be interested in what Brian and Bella needed. Han got there at the same time Tej Parker, Brian's friend from Miami, did. Another woman walked in, her hair dark, and pulled back in a high ponytail. Her slender body and height made her look like a model. Along for the ride was Leo and Santos, the 2 guys Han and Dom knew from the Dominica Republic from the gas tanker heists. "All right, they just pulled all the merry band of misfits together, didn't they?" Roman commented. Han looked around. "If I had to guess, this is for a job." "If you had to guess?" Tej asked. "We've been summoned to Rio, with cryptic messages from Brian and Bella. Which I'm assuming is how you all know each other somehow."
"Great, you're all here," Bella said as she walked in, Brian and Dom with her. "Hey Han, it's great to see you again," she said with a smile, going and hugging him, and then to Roman, hugging him.
Brian nodded to Tej. "Everyone, this is Tej Parker, a jack of all trades." He introduced Tej to everyone. Dom nodded to the other woman. "This is Giselle Yashar." Ex-most sad and a pretty decent racer. Once everyone was acquainted, Brian started talking. So, you're all here, to help assemble a team. There's a guy by the name of Hernan Reyes. He owns most of Rio. He has men everywhere, and we're going to steal all of his money.
Roman shook his head. You just called us all here, to pull a job on a guy, for what reason?
He killed Jesse, Bella said, her eyes landing on Han. Han frowned. No, his men did. Dom said. The bad thing is, we have a DSS agent hunting us. His name is Luke Hobbs, and he's never missed his mark. He thinks we killed DIA agents on the train heist that we pulled for Reyes and his henchmen. Tej held up a hand. Let me get this straight. You guys stole something from Reyes, and now Reyes is after you. Bella shook her head. Not exactly. The cars were seized by the DIA. We didn't know until after the start of the heist. Zizi, one of Reyes' men, intended to just use us and kill us. Roman nodded. Like Braga. Bella looked to Roman. Exactly. We discovered they needed the chip in one of the cars, that leads back to all Reyes' locations, where he has his money hidden, because none of it is in a bank. Roman shook his head. This is a suicide mission, I don't think. $100 million. Brian said. 100 million split 10 ways is 10 million. Roman crossed his arms. Okay. So, how do we do this? If his money is spread out in all different locations, we can't physically take it all. Dom nodded. Which is why, we're going to make him put it all in one spot. 24 hours later, Dom, Brian, Han, and Roman bust into one of the locations on the chip, holding Reyes' men at gunpoint, while all the cash was accumulated in a pile. Tell Reyes exactly who we are. I want you to tell him that I don't want his money, he said as Han and Brian poured gas over the large pile of money. Dom looked back at the pile, before looking back at the frightened men, before taking out his Zippo and flicking it, tossing it onto the pile of money, the pile erupting in flames. They walked out, as the fire blazed. Dom, Brian, Roman, and Han drove back to the safe house, and they dispersed, each taking a money house to watch. 48 hours later, like any wealthy man, who was only concerned with his money, he did as predicted, and pooled all his money together and placed it in a safe inside the police station, and put it inside a vault that was protected with a code and a palm scanner.
Tej looked at the police station from the roof of one of the buildings they were using as a post for surveillance. Man, this shit just got harder. He muttered, looking over at Roman, who nodded in agreement.
Hobbs was still hunting Dom, Brian, and Bella. With them setting the money on fire, it sent up a flag that they were still in Rio, and Hobbs was continuing his search for them. Bella's nausea got the better of her some days, and she still hadn't told Dom yet about her being pregnant. She didn't want to distract from the mission at hand. They would have a smaller window of opportunity to get into the police station, to get into that vault. Since they needed fast cars to get into the garage undetected, Bella and Brian took to the streets, racing, and gathering a couple cars at a time. They set up cameras to do a mock setup of what was at the police station, so they could practice the blind turns. Giselle was a fast racer, and there was a lot of trial and error it seemed like, but no matter how many times they ran it, the cameras picked them up.
Han shook his head. Damn. Every single time, he said and popped a peanut in his mouth. He was constantly eating something. He looked at Bella. Give it a try. You're the only one that hasn't tried yet.
Bella nodded, and then got in the Nissan Skyline that brought back memories for her of Jesse, but she pushed them aside. She blew out a breath as she started. She accelerated the fastest out of all of them, and she drifted the turns instead of turning through them. When she got to the end, Hans smirked. How was that? Camera 5 tagged you last second, but you cleared the other 8 cameras. Bella sighed. There's no way to beat camera 5. That turn can only be drifted that way. Let me try again, see if I can accelerate through it. She muttered and then got back in the car and tried again. After 5 times, Bella got out, slamming the door and cursing. Fuck. Yeah, camera 5, every time. Han said. You basically have to be invisible, Roman commented. Han blinked a few times. You're right, he muttered. What's invisible at a police station? A smile appeared on Bella's face. Police cars. Roman clapped. All right, now this is my specialty. Bri, you're with me, he said, and the two left.
Tej walked in, a tablet in his hands. Alright, so the safe that Reyes's is using is very high-end. That palm print ID is going to be the hardest part. We've got to get his handprint somehow. I've ordered a safe, of the exact make and model, to try some stuff on. It'll be here tomorrow, he said and looked at Han. What?
You were brilliant. That's all, he said and then looked at Bella. All right. I'll go and get the print. I'm a pretty likable guy, he said. Giselle spoke up. Her accent was always so sultry, and Bella thought it was pretty neat. I'll go with Han, and sure there are no fuck-ups, she said, and the two of them disappeared. Bella was feeling the nausea wave again, but this time she was able to fight it. Dom walked in with Leo and Santos. They were always bickering, the two brothers, but Dom put up with it, and just smiled at them. He walked over to Bella, noticing the strange look on her face. Baby, are you okay? Dom asked, a little worried. I am, Bella said, offering a smile. How is Mia and Jack? Good, for now, Dom said with a nod. Vince called, he wants to help. Bella shook his head. He basically led Reyes's men to us. Jesse got killed and... I know. He's feeling enough like shit for me having to add to it. We could use an extra person. Bella sighed. All right, as long as he doesn't fuck us over. At this point, he's trying to avoid Reyes too, seeing how we got away, Dom said. Roman and Brian pulled up 15 minutes later, sporting police cars. Roman got out and smiled. I still got it, he said, and fist bumped Brian as they walked over. All right. I say, we just wait for the print from Han and Giselle. For the time being, let's get some food and relax for just a moment, Bella said. Tej nodded. I'm gonna wait here for the safe, and for Han and Giselle to get back.
Roman nodded. I'll stay with you. Got food on the way, he said, and went back to the police car and pulled out a bag of food.
Bella smiled, shaking her head, and looked at Dom. Let's go rest for a while, she said, and she left with Dom. Brian following with to go back to the safe house where Mia and Jack were at. They stopped off at the market to grab some food, when Vince was there suddenly. We gotta move. Reyes's men are here, Vince said quickly, and the four of them left abruptly, getting in Dom's car and driving away quickly. Shit, Dom said, as they came up against a wall of armored vehicles. Fuck, Bella said, and looked at Dom. There's not a way out of this, she muttered. Dom pulled the car to a stop and sat there a moment. He looked over at Bella. We'll figure this out, he murmured to her, leaning over and kissing her quickly, before they were forced out of their vehicles, hands in the air. Luke Hobbs, the tall, muscular Samoan-looking man, approached. I've been chasing you all over Rio. Wasn't us that killed those agents, Brian said. Shut up. You're just a name that came across my desk. You're all under arrest, Hobbs barked. He loaded Bella, Brian, Dom, and Vince up in the back of one of the armored vehicles. Their hands were handcuffed behind them. They all sat there, two other agents in the back with them, as the convoy started its way towards what Bella assumed was the airport. Bella sat across from Dom, his eyes focused on hers. She worked her hands out of her cuffs, and sat there still, not letting anyone know her cuffs were off, but she knew that Brian was doing the same thing. Bella, I love you, Dom said, nodding to her. Bella swallowed. I love you too, she murmured. Suddenly the vehicle in front got hit with some sort of RPG, and the whole convoy was under attack. Brian and Vince moved at the same time, headbutting the two agents, knocking them unconscious. Brian's hands were free as he picked up the gun from one agent, and Bella picked up the other. Brian slipped the keys from one of the agent's pockets and undid Vince and Dom's handcuffs. They picked up the sidearms from the two unconscious agents, and then Dom moved, kicking open the door. There was a lot of gunfire, and he fired back at Reyes's men. Hobbs' head was bleeding from the impact of his vehicle getting overturned. He fired back at the men assaulting him. He saw a grenade land next to one of the vehicles, and the blast knocked him backwards, ringing screaming in his ear. He was disoriented, but he saw Dom running towards him, gun up, and shooting towards someone that was trying to come after them. Dom reached down, and hooked his fingers on Hobbs' vest, and drug him to safety. Bella fired, covering for Dom, while Brian flanked the right side. The woman cop, Nevis, that was with Hobbs, stumbled back with the others, disoriented as well, and Bella grabbed her arm and pulled her with her. Vince maneuvered around, covering while Bella doubled back with Dom and got tagged in the chest 3 times. Vince! Bella screamed, but Brian hooked his arm around her waist, pulling her away as they ran to cover. Dom reached down, hefting Hobbs up, and tossing him on his shoulder like a Marine would carry the wounded in battlefield, and ran with Brian and Bella. The shock of Vince's loss would not be forgotten. Garage safe house. They pulled up in a junker vehicle from the streets. Bella got out of the driver's side, Brian on the passenger with Dom, Nevis, and Hobbs from the back. Tej glanced up. Whoa, what the fuck happened? Ambush. Dom said, his tone showing his temper flaring a little. Bella looked at Tej. Vince was killed. You didn't meet him yet, but he grew up with Dom. Han and Giselle had made it back with the print. Thanks to Giselle, they were able to retrieve the print. Han was infatuated with Giselle, and it showed. Bella crossed her arms and looked at the safe that Tej was hooked up to with his tablet. So, this is the thing holding in everything Reyes loves, she muttered. Elena swallowed. I'm Elena, she said when the others stared at her in her cop uniform, a little wary. She fainted, and Roman moved towards her, checking her out. She's breathing. Roman said. She's not bleeding or anything. Hobbs finally spoke. She's a rookie cop. This was a big event. Dom, I know you didn't bring back the guy hunting us back with you, Han spoke. Dom looked at Hobbs, and then back at the others. The plan is still going to go. We have 10 hours to pull this off. I'm in. Hobbs said. I'm in. The bastard took out my convoy. People I cared about. He's on the wanted list of shitbags that I hunt for a living, and I'm not going to let him get away with murdering people. Bella nodded. Good, we're on the same page. For the record, we really didn't kill those agents. Hobbs studied her. Bella Swan was a brilliant agent in her time. She was elusive as hell, and before the train heist, she was not a fugitive. All right. I believe you. So, what's the plan? He said and looked at Dom. They explained the plan to him, and he agreed to it. Leave Reyes to me, Hobbs said, and looked at Dom. You do your fast car chases, and whatever fancy maneuvers, and I'll take out Reyes, he said. Bella nodded. Deal, she said, and then felt the nausea move over her. Excuse me, she said and walked off, going inside the door to the bathroom. She threw up, heaving and groaning. She hadn't even eaten yet. She didn't understand how she could still be this nauseous. When she finished, she rinsed her mouth and took a few deeper breaths before joining the others. Dom pulled her to the side, concerned about her. Baby, something's wrong. You weren't shot or anything, he said, inspecting her a little closely. I'm not shot, Bella said, smiling weakly. Something is wrong. I can tell, Dom prodded. Bella looked at him, swallowing. I'm pregnant. Dom stopped, his eyes staring into hers. When did you find this out? 8 days ago. I took a test because I just felt off, Bella said lowly. Dom. You're just now telling me. Bella. We were shot at today. We were shot at 8 days ago. I have to keep you safe. You can't put yourself in danger like this, Dom said, his voice still holding that air of concern. Bella teared up and nodded. We can't get distracted now. We have a plan, and we have to finish this out. No, you're staying with Mia and Jack. You, Dom. The plan hinges on me and Han. The part of the plan that requires more than one set of drivers, Bella said, looking at him seriously. I wanted to tell you after everything was over and... Bella, you can't. You're pregnant, Dom said, his eyes not leaving hers. You can't. I can, and will. Dom. Jesse is dead. Vince is dead. There is so much riding on this going smoothly. We have to finish this, and that includes me, Bella said. Dom shook his head. You can get hurt. I could have gotten hurt at any point over these last 8 days, but I wasn't. One wrong thing can happen. There are too many factors that we haven't even calculated. I can't lose you, not now, Dom murmured. Bella stared at him, and then grabbed his hand, and placed it on her stomach. We're going to be okay. We're going to finish this job, and we're going to take the money and disappear. We're going to live our lives, with no more heists or jobs that require us to jump on and off trains, or steal vaults from the police station, she said, looking at him. I want nothing more than to just be on our beach together, but right now we have a job to do. Bella, Dom murmured, his hand moving over her stomach. His heart constricted in his chest. He was going to be a father, something that he had never once thought about because of being on the run for so long. The money they got from this job would settle them for life. They could become new people in this world, and leave all the bullshit behind. He struggled internally on what to do. He didn't want her to be in danger. What if you get hurt? Bella looked at him. Dom. I'm not going to get hurt, she murmured. Han and I are driving the decoy cars. It's you and Brian that I'm worried about. Dom studied her. You have to be extremely careful, he murmured. God, I can't believe I'm agreeing to this, he muttered. Bella leaned in, her mouth capturing his, kissing him softly. We're going to be okay, she reiterated, trying to convince him and herself. 10 hours later, the plan went into motion. Dom and Bella were silent about her pregnancy, not wanting to freak anyone else out. It was enough that Dom was freaking out about it on the inside. Hobbs and Elena drove an armored vehicle into the police station, taking out the wall they needed for the safe. When Reyes's men appeared to give them problems, Hobbs took them out, with Elena trying to cover the best she could. Dom and Brian backed in with the black-painted Dodge Chargers, police issued. They hooked metal cables to the rear of their cars and to the safe. Roman and Giselle worked their way to the left side, covering for Dom and Brian, while Luke and Elena took up the right. Leo and Santos were standing by for phase 2 of the plan. When the safe broke free from its confinement, the two raced out, taking to the streets of Rio, the safe slinging all over the place as they did. Roman and Giselle got in their own cars, with Hobbs and Elena getting in the armored vehicle and pulling away from the station. Before long, every cop in Rio was chasing after the large safe being propelled down the street by Dom and Brian. Gotta go, left Dom, Brian said into the walkie, and they timed it, going wide, running out some room, the safe going through a bank. Damn, did you guys just take out a bank? Tej's voice filtered through the walkies. He was running eyes in the sky, so to speak. He had hacked into the surveillance system in Rio, that was positioned throughout the city. Brian looked in the rearview mirror. Sort of, he said into the walkie. Suddenly Han and Bella flew from 2 different directions, driving 2 police cars, their lights blaring. Santos threw a tack strip behind them, riding shotgun with Han. Bella maneuvered in and out of traffic, coming up behind the safe pulled by Dom and Brian. She lifted her walkie. All right, we have a 10-minute window, let's do this, she said, and then Dom and Brian swung wide at the next turn, the safe clipping another building, but they managed to straighten up. Bella was right behind them. The street they picked had limited view from surveillance cameras. Leo pulled the large truck up, and released the dummy safe, and Dom and Brian quickly unhitched from the real safe, and Bella's car hitched up to the real safe, and the swap happened in less than the 10-minute window. Dom's eyes fell on Bella's as she put the cop car in reverse, flooring it, and pushing the safe up into the truck. She flicked her lights and Leo shut Bella up in the truck with the safe and other cop car, and drove away. Dom and Brian took to the street again, hauling the dummy safe towards the bridge, where it was going to end. Bella closed her eyes, the darkness of the truck consuming her. Her heart was still slamming in her chest, as she waited for Dom to make it to the end, to get back to her.
Leo pulled up at the hideout, and came to a stop. When the door opened, she drove the police car down the ramp and into the garage. She got out and looked to Tej. All right. Get to work busting the code, she said, and then fist bumped Leo, and walked around going to the screens to look at the situation with Dom and Brian.
30 minutes later, Dom and Brian made it to the bridge. The safe was a little unpredictable, but the plan was working out. Hobbs and Elena ended on the bridge. Reyes's vehicle got swiped with the safe, and he crawled out of the vehicle.
Hobbs walked over, looking down at the man that caused so much trouble. He started to beg for his life, but Hobbs didn't hesitate, putting a few bullets in him, before walking over to where Dom and Brian were unhitching the safe. I can't let you go, but I'll give you a head start. You have 24 hours before I hunt you again, he said, looking at Dom. Safe stays.
Dom nodded. All right. Fair, he said, and looked to Brian and nodded. They got into one of the cars and drove away, going towards the safe house. When they got there, Tej was getting the safe open. The whole gang was there, waiting. Dom went to Bella immediately, the only thing that had mattered to him, and he put his arms around her, hugging her to him, and kissed her hard, before they all watched as the safe opened, and money flowed out.
Roman smiled wide. Damn, that's a lot of dough, he said, hugging Brian and high-fiving Tej.
Bella smiled, seeing the excitement, and then she felt the nausea roll, and she moved to the trash can, throwing up. It drew attention to her. Oh man, Bells, you okay? Brian asked, walking over with Dom. Bella nodded. Yeah, she muttered. She blew out a breath, as she wiped her mouth with a bandana from her pocket. Yeah, I'm good, she said as the nausea passed over as quick as it hit her. Let's get moving. 24 hours, yeah? Dom nodded, still concerned, but he didn't press it. 1 week later. Vanuatu. The ocean was always so calming. A tropical paradise that enhanced relaxation. Vanuatu was an island comprised of many small islands, and despite it being a big destination for tourists and cruises, Vanuatu had no treaty with the United States when it came to extradition. It was obscure enough to where Bella was sure Hobbs wouldn't come looking for her, Dom, and Brian, the only three that were wanted technically.
Disappearing when you had millions came easier. Tej went back to Miami, Roman going with to check out Miami's scene. Leo and Santos returned to Dominica Republic. Giselle decided to stick with Han, heading back to Tokyo for some much-needed vacation time together. But Brian, Mia, Dom, and Bella, along with Jack, Brian, and Mia's 2-year-old son, came to Vanuatu.
The resort was beautiful, right on the water, and it was a big tourist attraction. Even had scuba diving on the reefs. Vanuatu wasn't far from Australia, and after enough time passed, they thought about going and visiting, but for now they just wanted to lay low and be happy. The first thing they did when they came to Vanuatu was go to the hospital on the island to talk to the doctor. The primary language was either French or English, and their doctor just happened to speak both. They did some tests and did an ultrasound, and Bella and Dom got to see their perfect little baby. She was 7 weeks pregnant. Now, they were waiting for the house to be built on one of the smaller islands that would give them more privacy. Their only neighbors were going to be Brian and Mia, which is what they wanted. You are incredible, Dom murmured, kissing Bella, as they watched the water together from the balcony of their room at the resort. Bella smiled. I'm not that special. You are. Dom's mouth moved over hers again, and then he lifted her, her legs hanging around him as he carried her inside and lay her on the bed. He was so gentle, something that Bella loved with Dom. He was so attentive. They were going to be parents, and that both excited her and scared her. It was going to be a whole new world for them. 6 months later. The construction on the houses were close to being finished on the island. Next week they were moving in, and that was exciting for Bella and Dom considering their son was going to be here soon. What are you going to name him? Brian asked as they sat at the dinner table, eating like they normally did. They decided to rent a property to get out of the resort and closer to the build site. Bella smiled at Dom and nodded. Jesse Vincent Toretto, Dom said with a smile. Brian loved the name. That's a great name. Mia nodded her agreement, and then helped Jack with his food. He was 3 now, but he still needed some help from time to time. He looked a lot like Brian already for his age. Bella smiled, watching how Mia was with Jack. She hoped that she could be an amazing mom, like her. She felt some slight discomfort, and she rubbed a hand over her swollen belly. Dom noticed that Bella looked uncomfortable. Baby, are you okay? He's stretching, I think, Bella said, blowing out a breath. Her stomach was tightening up, and some dull aching pain radiated in her back.
Mia looked at Bella's face, seeing the register of slight pain. Bella, are you having contractions?
I don't think so. It would hurt more, right? Your pain tolerance is really high, Brian commented. Dom should get you to the doctor, just to be sure. Guys, it's fine. I'm due in 2 weeks, there's still time. Mia shook her head. Jack came 3 weeks early. Bells, you shouldn't push it. Dom stood. Mia's right, come on, let me get you to the doctor, he said, and reached for Bella, helping her up. Bella grumbled, but she gave in. Dom got her out to the car, and they drove towards the hospital on the island. Vanuatu Private Hospital. Dom and Bella got to the hospital, and they brought her back to VIP immediately to have her checked out. I'm telling you, this is just ridiculous, Bella muttered as she lay in the bed. Dom smiled at her, brushing her hair out of her face, and kissed her softly. Better safe than sorry. Let Dr. Eve look at you, he said, his voice soft and gentle. Bella sighed and nodded. She felt some more aches in her lower back and now across the front of her belly as it tightened. She read about Braxton Hicks, was certain that's what this was. 20 minutes later, Dr. Eve walked in. She was from Australia originally. Her hair was a bright, pale blonde, and was cut off at her shoulders, and her eyes were a brilliant green grass color. Looks like you might be in labor, Dr. Eve said as she walked in with a smile on her face. Her unmistakable Australian accent was lilted a little with a lighter airy tone, reminding Bella of an old friend from high school. I think this is just a waste of time. I feel fine, Bella said, wincing a little as more dull aches appeared.
Eve smiled. She said and then had Bella position herself, pulling the sheet up and with a gloved hand, checked Bella. Oh wow, yeah, you're dilated Bella, to a 7, and you're fully effaced. You're having this baby today.
Dom raised a brow, and looked at Bella, as he crossed his arms. How long have you been sitting there today having contractions? Bella blinked a few times. Wait, he's not supposed to be here for another 2 weeks, she frowned. Most babies don't arrive on their due date. You're 38 weeks and 4 days Bella, it's perfectly safe for him to come. We consider this full term. Eve said with a smile. I'm surprised you're this dilated. Have you been having a lot of pain? Just discomfort. I thought maybe it was Braxton Hicks, she murmured. It's been like this since I woke up this morning. Dom sighed, running a hand over his bald head. Bella, baby, you have to tell me these things. Bella looked at him. It's not that much pain, she murmured. Eve smiled again. Well, we'll definitely see him today. Are we still foregoing pain medicines? Bella nodded. Yeah, the pain isn't so bad, she said and shifted in the bed a little. She looked at Dom. I can't believe I've been in labor. I can't believe you didn't realize it, Dom said with a little laugh, but he leaned in, kissing her. I love you. He's going to be here today, he murmured. Bella smiled. He is. 6 hours later, Jesse Vincent Toretto was born at 1 a.m., weighing 8 pounds and 2 ounces and was 20 inches long. He was a pretty big baby and Bella did it naturally. She was tired, but she was happy that he was finally there. His hair was dark like Bella's and his eyes were dark, which was a given considering both had dark eyes.
He's so perfect, Bella murmured as she cradled her son. He was wrapped tight in a blue blanket, with a matching blue hat. She was instantly in love, and knew that this was the beginning of her and Dom's life together as a little family.
He is. Dom murmured, as he kissed the top of Bella's head. He was so proud of her, and how strong she was, with everything that has happened. He's never met a woman as strong as she was. Marry me, he said, as he stared at their son. Bella glanced up at him, smiling. We don't have to have a piece of paper binding us together. I know, Dom said with a nod. Bella looked down at Jess's sleeping face. Okay. Let's do it, she said and looked back up at Dom and smiled. I'll marry you. Dom smiled, leaning down, his mouth covering hers briefly before the nurse came in to check on them. They were released from the hospital the next day, and they were happy to be home where Bella could lay in an actual bed that was comfortable. Mia held Jesse, smiling down at his sweet little face. He's so precious. I remember when Jack was this little. Bella smiled. Brian and Dom were at the build site making sure some of the things were taken care of, since there was 5 more days until they technically were going to be moving. Yeah, you and Brian think about more kids? Bella asked. Mia shook her head. Oh, no, I think Jack is all we can handle, she said. Bella smiled. Dom asked me to marry him. That's amazing, Mia said and looked at Bella. Are you two going to do it? Bella nodded. Yeah. It's important to Dom. I'm never going anywhere. I already feel married to him, so it's just a piece of paper, but it's worth it. Tej is getting us papers that we need to get married here. You and Brian are our witnesses if that's okay.
Of course, Mia said, and then went and set Jesse down in the bassinet so he could rest easier. I knew I liked you the moment you walked into Toretto's.
Bella smiled. Well, you wouldn't have liked me if you knew why I was there initially. Mia shook her head. You know, it's all ancient history now. If someone asked Bella 3 years ago if she would fall in love and be living as a millionaire in Vanuatu, then she would have told someone they were crazy. She didn't have any regrets. She was exactly where she wanted to be. She loved Dom, and she was going to live her life with him and Jesse to the fullest. Never taking anything for granted, because the world they lived in could be dangerous. They retired from the racing scene, and they vowed to never pick up a crazy job again. They were happy the way things were now, even if Hobbs was hunting them. Maybe he was being relaxed about it, considering they weren't dangerous fugitives. But that part didn't matter to her anymore. Dom and Jesse mattered, and that's how she was going to take it. No more riding in the fast lane. The end, guys. Thanks for watching. Do like and subscribe for more such videos, and don't forget to drop your reviews in comment section.